Chapter 475. Under such circumstances, the experts of the three realms naturally could not stay together. They were gradually scattered and could no longer chase after Shaoling Yu. The closer they were to the center of the nebula, the faster the flowing light moved. The pulling force on Shaoling Yu and the other cultivators also increased, and the pulling force also increased their speed. Under such extreme speed, even if they did not touch those planets or meteorites, the cultivators' bodies could not withstand it. This was especially true for those with low physical quality. If they did not use high-quality divine artifacts to defend themselves, their bodies would definitely be ground to dust. Fortunately, as they were pulled along, the experts of the three realms could still try to collect the treasures near them. They could no longer chase after Shaoling Yu and could only shift their attention to the treasures. However, in a situation where their bodies were not under their control, even if the treasures were moving side by side with them, it was difficult for the cultivators to grab the treasures. This was because the treasures were also being pulled by a powerful force. If the cultivators wanted to get the treasures, they had to be able to resist the pulling force for a short period of time. In the periphery of the nebula, the venerable realm experts could actually stabilize their bodies for a short period of time. However, once they stabilized their bodies, it was very likely that they would be hit by the planets or meteorites flying at high speed behind them. Therefore, before stabilizing their bodies, they had to see if it was safe behind them before they could consider taking the treasures. Even if they were careful, after the experts used their divine artifacts or their own hands to grab the treasures, they had just forcefully stabilized their bodies and were about to put the treasures away when they were hit by the meteorites flying from behind. The light injuries were serious, and the heavy injuries were immediate collapse. When they realized the danger of the flowing light domain, no one dared to act rashly. Even if the treasures were right in front of them, they could only silently covet them. Shaoling Yu did not have too many scruples. As long as there were treasures around him, he would go and collect them. As for the danger behind him, he would leave it to the eight-legged monster to resist. In the flowing light domain, although the eight-legged monster was also affected by the pulling force, causing it to fly with Shaoling Yu at high speed, it seemed to be far less affected than Shaoling Yu. Moreover, it was not afraid of being hit by the planets or meteorites. With the eight-legged monster covering him from behind, Shaoling Yu could calmly take the treasures. One by one, he caught the treasures and put them into his storage magic treasure. The flowing light domain was vast. Before entering, Shaoling Yu had scanned it with his eyes. He was completely unable to determine how many treasures there were in it. If he took out all the treasures here, his wealth would probably be the envy of all the forces in the three realms. It could even be said that the total number of treasures here was many times more than the total number of treasures in the three realms. It would take nearly 1,000 years to fly one round, and Shaoling Yu could obtain at least 7 or 8 treasures with each round. However, he was still very far from the center of the nebula, and each round would only take him tens of thousands of kilometers. At this speed, Shaoling Yu estimated that he would need at least 1,000,000 years to reach the whirlpool in the center of the nebula, and this was on the premise that he could persevere. The deeper he went into the nebula, the stronger the pulling force on his body, and the faster he advanced. This caused the friction between his body and the space to constantly increase. Even if Shaoling Yu had a body comparable to a divine artifact and a divine artifact to defend himself, it would probably be difficult for him to persevere until he reached the center. However, if even Shaoling Yu could not persevere, then how many of the experts of the three realms behind him could persevere? As he flew at full speed, Shaoling Yu's power was gradually recovering. The injuries of the three women and the foodie in the divine abode were also gradually recovering with the help of the divine pills. Just like this, Shaoling Yu flew for nearly 200,000 years in this desolate yet gorgeous sea of stars. He was still 2/3 of the way to the black hole in the center of the nebula when he finally felt that his body could not take it anymore. However, in these 200,000 years, his power had long recovered. Furthermore, he had refined several divine artifacts of higher quality that he had obtained previously. At this moment, his body could not take it anymore, so he took out those divine artifacts to protect himself. In fact, the other experts of the three realms could not persevere any longer. However, they had also obtained many treasures, including many high-quality defensive divine artifacts. Although it was getting more and more dangerous, everyone could still persevere with the help of the divine artifacts. After another 200,000 years, Xiao Yu was only one-third of the way to the black hole in the center of the nebula. However, at this moment, the best defensive divine artifact he possessed were constantly being damaged by the friction between him and the space. This made him realize that the true danger was approaching. Previously, the best defensive divine artifact Xiao Yu had obtained was a high-quality divine artifact. This meant that to complete the rest of the journey, he would need at least one supreme quality defensive divine artifact. However, Xiao Yu had not obtained any supreme quality defensive divine artifacts in the first few 100,000 miles. Furthermore, none of them had any supreme quality defensive divine artifacts to begin with. How were they going to persevere on the rest of the journey? Seeing that the high-quality defensive divine artifact protecting him was becoming more and more damaged, as if it could shatter at any time, Xiao Yu was already burning with anxiety. If he could not think of a good solution, not only would he perish, but even the three women in the divine abode, Elder Peng and Fudi, would perish with him. What made Xiao Yu most depressed was that the experts of the three realms should have been more anxious than him. However, at this moment, most of them had gathered together again. Under the protection of the golden bowl-shaped supreme quality defensive divine artifact and the Dragon Emperor's golden bead, there was no danger at all. The Dragon Emperor's golden bead was, in fact, the inherited treasure of the dragons. It was a supreme quality defensive divine artifact. After these experts of the three realms entered the nebula, they had gradually scattered. However, they had entered at almost the same time after all, so the distance between them was not very far. Furthermore, after realizing the danger, they used several 100,000 years to use various divine abilities and divine artifacts to naturally gather together again. The other party had supreme quality defensive divine artifacts, and as many as two of them. They should be able to persevere until the end. Furthermore, under the protection of the supreme quality divine artifacts, they would be able to obtain many treasures. This made Xiao Yu very unhappy. However, at this moment, he was not in the mood to be jealous of others. It was better to consider his own situation first. If he wanted to persevere, there were only two ways. The first was to obtain a supreme quality defensive divine artifact in a short period of time. The second was to transform the eight-legged monster into an eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. The possibility of obtaining a supreme quality defensive divine artifact in a short period of time was not very high. Even if he did obtain one, Xiao Yu would not be able to refine it in a short period of time. However, it was also very difficult for the eight-legged monster to transform into an eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. The brilliant white fireball on its body had to leave first. For hundreds of thousands of years, Xiao Yu had been studying this problem. However, he had never been able to find a solution. This was because the brilliant white fireball was like the eight-legged monster's nemesis in nemesis. It refused to leave the eight-legged monster's body of its own accord, and the eight-legged monster could not shake it off. Xiao Yu was even more helpless against such a high-level flame. Tenchi's methods were truly impressive. He was actually able to transform a magic treasure into a monster. Now that Xiao Yu was the owner of the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, he still could not figure out how the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron had transformed into a monster. Furthermore, the monster did not have the slightest aura of a magic treasure. Seeing that his supreme quality defensive divine artifact was about to collapse, Xiao Yu ordered the eight-legged monster to reduce its strength. The eight-legged monster restrained its strength so that the power of the brilliant white fireball would not concentrate on its body. At this moment, Xiao Yu released the primordial fire of chaos from his body and surrounded the brilliant white fireball. Then, He poured his essence, blood, and soul into the primordial fire of chaos before transferring it to the brilliant white fireball. Xiao Lingyu was actually preparing to refine the brilliant white fireball. Originally, Xiao Lingyu was prepared to leave the Tenchi's treasure trove and find a safe place to refine the brilliant white fireball. However, he had no other choice now. He was not prepared to refine the brilliant white fireball at all, so it would definitely be difficult for him to succeed this time. However, he did not expect to succeed. Instead, he felt that if he tried to refine it, it would counterattack. Reality was just as Xiao Lingyu expected. After he refined the brilliant white fireball with his essence, blood, and soul for a while, the brilliant white fireball would really counterattack Xiao Lingyu. At this moment, the eight-legged monster would cooperate with Xiao Lingyu to increase its strength, forcing the brilliant white fireball to suppress it. The brilliant white fireball concentrated its power on suppressing the eight-legged monster, while Xiao Lingyu's essence, blood, and soul continued to corrode and refine it. Not long after, the eight-legged monster's cultivation level would decrease again, and it would prepare to counterattack Xiao Lingyu again. Meanwhile, the eight-legged monster would increase its strength again. Under this repeated cycle, the brilliant white fireball that was obviously full of spirituality finally lost its patience. It directly left the eight-legged monster's body and pounced toward Xiao Lingyu. The brilliant white fireball probably wanted to destroy Xiao Lingyu first before suppressing the eight-legged monster again. However, just as it left the eight-legged monster's body, the eight-legged monster had already transformed into the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. Then, the cauldron's mouth moved towards it and Xiao Lingyu. Without the 8 stone pillars and chains restraining it, the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron's movements were not restricted in any way. As a sacred artifact, it instantly swallowed the brilliant white fireball and Xiao Lingyu into the cauldron's stomach. The eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron had already recognized Xiao Lingyu as its master in its eight-legged monster form. Naturally, it would not harm Xiao Lingyu. After it swallowed Xiao Lingyu into its stomach, it separated Xiao Lingyu from the brilliant white fireball. Before Xiao Lingyu and the other experts of the 3 realms had entered the 2 extremes palace, the brilliant white fireball had been trapped in the cauldron's stomach. If not for Xiao Lingyu and the other experts of the 3 realms continuously shaking the cauldron, the brilliant white fireball would not have been able to escape. Xiao Lingyu's risk this time had been successful. However, he still had a lingering fear. If the Tai Chi cauldron's reaction had been slightly slower, he would have been devoured by the brilliant white fireball. Then, he would definitely have been reduced to ashes. Furthermore, if the brilliant white fireball had not left the eight-legged monster's body, Xiao Lingyu would not have been able to escape. Chapter 476. After hiding in the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, Xiao Lingyu finally relaxed after being nervous for a long time. The eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron was also affected by the huge pulling force. Like the meteorites, it was constantly spinning in a circular trajectory. However, the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron was a divine artifact, after all. The pulling force here affected it, but not by much. It could completely follow Xiao Lingyu's instructions and continue flying while using the mouth of the cauldron to capture the treasures. Moreover, the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, which had transformed into a treasure cauldron, was far better at capturing treasures than Xiao Lingyu. Furthermore, it was not afraid of the collisions of the meteorites or planets at all. Everything could be left to the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. After Xiao Lingyu had some free time, he meditated and cultivated in the cauldron's belly. He continued to comprehend the principles of chaos and deepen his understanding of the chaotic soul formation stage. The 3 women and Elder Peng were also cultivating diligently. Only the foodie was sleeping soundly after recovering from his injuries. After nearly 200,000 years, Xiao Lingyu woke up from his cultivation because he sensed that the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron had suddenly stopped. It had stopped for a full 10 minutes without moving. Xiao Lingyu used his mind to communicate with the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. Then, his body disappeared from the cauldron's belly and appeared outside the cauldron. At this moment, The eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron had already reached the center of the vast nebula. Not far in front of it, there was a spatial black hole that flashed with silver light from time to time. That spatial black hole was definitely a spatial tunnel. As for where it led, Shaolin Yu could not be sure. However, he was sure that this should be the only way out of the Tenchi's treasures. He had no other choice. Shaolin Yu's mind sank into the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron again. He looked satisfied. The ball of brilliant white flames was still firmly trapped in the cauldron's belly. There were also thousands of treasures in the cauldron's belly. Almost all of these treasures were divine grade. They were either divine pills, divine artifacts, or divine grade materials. When the realms were divided, the Tenchi must have left all the things he had no use for here. Before he reached the level of the Tenchi, he naturally refined a lot of divine treasures and collected a lot of divine materials. After all, the realms were not divided in ancient times, so divine materials were not difficult to obtain. With so many treasures, the descendants of Earth will no longer lack resources and inheritances. It can be said that they have the capital to be strong for a long time. Shaolin Yu then shifted her attention away from the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. After looking around, she invited the three women, Elder Peng and Fudi, out. They didn't directly enter the spatial black hole, and they stood guard at the entrance of the spatial black hole while waiting for the other experts of the three dimensions to arrive. At the entrance of the spatial black hole, there was no pulling force acting on everyone. Furthermore, everyone's strength was not restricted in any way. Now that everyone was in peak condition, Shaolin Yu decided to teach the experts of the three realms a lesson. After waiting for less than 100 years, the experts of the three realms slowly approached under the protection of the golden beads and golden bowls. What made Shaolin Yu curious was that the experts of the three realms did not show the slightest fear when they saw the few of them blocking the entrance. Instead, they quickly approached. "Leave the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron behind, and we can let you live." The demon realm's demon supremacy Hu Yin Lianxi shouted unyieldingly. "I really don't know where you get your courage from." Shaolin Yu replied with a look of contempt. At this moment, the yin-yang mirror had already floated in front of Shaolin Yu. Shaolin Yu could inject energy into the yin-yang mirror at any time to release the four supremacy level illusory monsters. With Shaolin Yu, the three girls, the Fudi, and the four illusory monsters, Shaolin Yu's side had 9 supremacies. Although the other side had more than 10, the only one that Shaolin Yu really cared about was the Demon Clan's Dragon Emperor. The Immortal Realm and the Demon Realm each had a late-stage supremacy level expert. They were also quite strong, but they were only stronger than ordinary early-stage and mid-stage supremacy level experts. Their attack power was not considered strong. As for the Demon Clan's Demon Emperors, although they all had the bloodline of a super divine beast and had powerful innate abilities, most of them were at the Emperor level. Their strength was only comparable to ordinary supremacies. Yin Xiang, the Black Tortoise, and the other demon supremacies were also unable to cause any substantial harm to Shaolin Yu and the others. However, after these supremacies took out their divine artifacts one by one, Shaolin Yu finally understood why they were so confident. In the hundreds of thousands of years in the flowing light domain, they had obtained many high-quality divine artifacts. Moreover, they had enough time to refine them. Just as Shaolin Yu finished speaking, the three realms experts shot out more than 10 divine talismans at the same time. If more than 10 high-quality divine talismans exploded on one's body at the same time, the power would definitely not be weak. Shaolin Yu and the Fudi immediately unleashed their dual territory. At the same time, he also injected his power into the yin-yang mirror. Although the dual territory was strong, it still collapsed under the bombardment of more than 10 divine talismans. However, after the 4 illusory monsters appeared, they immediately replenished the 4 symbols' territory to resist the opponent's attack. Shaolin Yu and the Fudi took the opportunity to set up another dual territory. Then, Shaolin Yu ordered the 4 illusory monsters to charge forward with the 4 symbols' territory. The 4 monsters were immortal. Moreover, most attacks were completely useless against them. Their attack power was not weak under the combination of the four symbols territory. The Three Realms experts could only scatter and dodge first. The enemy's formation was already in chaos. Xiaoling Yu and the Foodie charged forward together. The Three Realms experts did not want to fight to the death with the four illusory monsters because no matter how they fought, they would not be able to gain any advantage. However, they did not dare to enter the dual territory to fight Xiaoling Yu head-on. With their formation in chaos, they could not organize a group attack again. They could only keep dodging, looking very pathetic. The three women did not attack. They only guarded the entrance of the spatial black hole. Firstly, they did not want to let the Three Realms experts leave. Secondly, if they encountered danger, they could escape into the spatial black hole at the first moment. The Three Realms experts dodged for a while before gathering together again. Then, the Black Tortoise took out the Golden Bowl, and the Dragon Emperor used the Golden Pearl. The two supreme-grade divine artifacts released a circle of golden light at the same time, enveloping all of them. The four illusory monsters kept attacking fiercely, but they were unable to break through the defense of the supreme-grade divine artifacts. The Three Realms experts within the Golden Light did not care about the four illusory monsters. They all attacked Xiaoling Yu and the others with their divine talismans or divine artifacts. However, their attacks were not blocked by the Golden Light. The enemy's attacks gave Xiaoling Yu and the Foodie a headache. They could fight any supreme-grade cultivator one-on-one and easily defeat them. However, they did not dare to charge head-on when facing the attacks of more than 10 supreme-grade experts at the same time. Although their dual territory was strong, it was not strong enough to break through the defense of supreme-grade divine artifacts. Xiaoling Yu and the Foodie found it very difficult to break through the defense of two supreme-grade divine artifacts at the same time. However, the four illusory monsters could not hold on for long. Just as Xiaoling Yu and the Foodie were thinking of a countermeasure, a huge sword slashed down from the sky with a mighty momentum and unparalleled sharpness. Looking at the huge sword, Xiaoling Yu thought of the merciless divine sword. That's right, this huge sword was transformed from the merciless divine sword. Naturally, it was Anya who had attacked with all his might. The huge sword slashed down from the sky and viciously struck the two circles of golden light. It instantly cut through the first circle of light, but it was blocked by the second circle of light. The Three Realms experts within the golden light all heaved a long sigh of relief. However, when they saw the huge sword slashing down from the sky again, they could not help but become nervous again. However, the circle of light that had been cut open by the huge sword was now released again. The huge sword slashed down repeatedly, but could only cut through one circle of light each time. The opponents could not let the merciless divine sword slash down continuously. They controlled the two defensive divine artifacts to advance, constantly approaching the spatial black hole. The merciless divine sword could not keep slashing like this, so Xiaoling Yu took out more than 10 high-quality divine talismans. When the merciless divine sword slashed down again, he threw out all the divine talismans. When the first layer of golden light was split open, the dozen or so talismans exploded outside the last layer of light. The bombardment of more than a dozen divine talismans blasted apart the last layer of golden light. Before the opponents could set up another defensive circle of light, the merciless divine sword slashed across. Most of the opponents dodged the slash, but Huyin Lianxi, Toba Yi, Hu Yunzi, and the Qilin Demon Emperor were all hit. The four of them were practically annihilated by the powerful ripples of sword intent contained within the merciless divine sword at the same time. There was no need to doubt the offensive power of the merciless divine sword. However, Anya's cultivation realm was not high enough. Even if he could use such a move, he would not be able to lock onto his opponents. It would be very difficult to hit a paragon under normal circumstances. However, the paragons had gathered together earlier. Furthermore, they did not expect the defenses of the two supreme quality divine artifacts to be broken through so quickly. Caught off guard, it was inevitable that some of them would be hit. After the merciless divine sword's slash, the opponents were extremely shocked. After they gathered together again, they quickly set up 2 new circles of light. The Chilean Demon Emperor's death made the experts of the Yao clan extremely furious. The Dragon Emperor even transformed into his original form. Looking at the golden dragon of unknown length that was flashing with golden light, Xiao Lingyu knew that the Dragon Emperor was about to activate his innate ability. Therefore, he led everyone into the spatial black hole. The 5-clawed golden dragon's innate ability was to seal off space. Generally speaking, it could seal off experts that were a level higher than them. Xiao Lingyu and the others were at the same level as the Dragon Emperor. They should not be able to avoid being sealed. It was better to escape as soon as possible. In any case, they did not have the intention to kill all of the opponents. Moreover, they had already killed 4 of them. It could be considered as some interest in advance. Chapter 477. The spatial power inside the black hole was not very violent. Occasionally, a spatial crack would appear in front of them, but it was not difficult to dodge. Xiao Lingyu and the others rushed forward, but the spatial passage was extremely long. Even though they were moving at full speed, they still could not see the end. After nearly 100 years, Xiao Lingyu and the others finally saw a circle of golden light in front of them. They thought that the circle of golden light was the end, but it was not. The circle of golden light looked more like a circular passage that seemed to be made of pure gold. However, it was not very long. Xiao Lingyu and the others only took less than 10 breaths of time to pass through it. Then, they arrived at a pitch-black spatial passage. Looking back, they saw a long golden pipe lying horizontally in this pitch-black space. It emitted a dazzling golden light, but did not reveal any power. What is this thing? Why is it lying horizontally here? Xiao Lingyu asked, puzzled. It should be left behind by the Tenchi. I think it is used to stabilize this spatial passage, Elder Peng said with narrowed eyes. I was wondering why this spatial passage was so stable. It turns out that it is maintained by a magic treasure, Anya said, seeming to understand. But such a special spatial passage has always existed here. How can it be maintained by a magic treasure alone? Xiao Lingyu said, a little surprised. Yes, ordinary spatial passages connect 2 spaces. The spatial turbulence between the 2 spaces is very chaotic and powerful. Ordinary magic treasures cannot stabilize a spatial passage for a long time. The spatial power in the spatial turbulence is so strong that even a divine artifact would not be able to maintain it for tens of millions of years, Elder Peng said, nodding. Elder Peng, what do you mean? Miaoing asked curiously. This may also be a sacred artifact, Elder Peng guessed. Sacred artifact? Xiao Lingyu and the 3 girls were shocked. They thought that they had left the Tenchi's treasure trove. They did not expect to encounter a sacred artifact on the way out. Using a sacred artifact to create a way out for the cultivators who entered the treasure trove, the Tenchi style was truly admirable. Since it was a saint artifact, Xiao Lingyu and the others naturally wanted to take it for themselves. However, this saint artifact was too big, and they didn't know where to start. Let's try the normal method first, Elder Peng said to Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu did as she was told. She dripped a drop of blood essence into the golden passageway, but it was rejected by the sacred artifact. This passage is still being maintained. If we take it away now, I'm afraid we'll be trapped in the spatial turbulence, Qin Xian suddenly reminded. That should be the case. Let's leave this spatial passageway first. None of the sacred artifacts left behind by Tenchi can be taken away so easily. This one is probably no different, Elder Peng agreed. Xiao Lingyu didn't hesitate any longer. She immediately turned around and led everyone forward. He had already gained quite a lot from this trip, so there was no need to take another risk for a magic treasure. Less than 10 minutes after Xiao Lingyu and the others flew away, a group of slightly miserable experts of the 3 realms arrived before the golden passageway. The experts of the 3 realms were all people with extraordinary experience. They quickly came to the same conclusion as Xiao Yu and the others. However, they wouldn't give up so decisively like Xiao Yu and the others. Some of the experts of the three realms also tried to drip blood on the golden passageway, but they were naturally unsuccessful like Xiao Yu. They all stood there with complicated expressions on their faces. However, they practically used every method they could think of, but they were unable to move the golden passageway, let alone make it recognize them as its master. The experts of the three realms stayed there for an entire month. In the end, they could only dejectedly think of leaving. 100 years after leaving the golden passageway, Xiao Yu and the others finally arrived at the end of the spatial passageway. However, they found themselves in a seemingly ordinary part of the starry sky. This part of the starry sky seemed more like space. There was actually no starlight at all when they looked as far as they could. However, there was an extremely obvious star nearby, and it seemed to be the only star in this part of the starry sky. They'd spent a total of 200 years in the spatial passageway. The golden passageway was at the center of the spatial passageway. This confirmed Xiao Yu and the others' guesses. The golden passageway was used to stabilize and maintain the spatial passageway. It was even to the extent that the spatial passageway could be said to have been created by the golden passageway. Xiao Yu and the others didn't leave right away. They first bombarded the exit of the spatial passageway with the intention of causing space to collapse. Unfortunately, their attacks were completely useless against the spatial passageway. However, Xiao Yu and the others still didn't leave. Instead, they stood guard at the exit of the spatial passageway, waiting for the experts of the three realms to arrive. Xiao Yu and the others had been adventuring in the Tenchi's treasure trove for hundreds of thousands of years, but Ling who was in the divine dwellings, was still in a state of cultivation with her six senses sealed. Everyone could clearly sense that her aura was constantly growing stronger. The water of the illusory spirit clan's spirit pool was of great help to her. That star seems very mysterious. Should we go and take a look first? It will probably take some time for the experts of the three realms to arrive, Miao Ying said to Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu thought for a moment. Seeing that everyone seemed to have the same idea, she nodded and said, "All right, there's no harm in going and taking a look first." In fact, Xiao Yu had long felt that the star was strange, and she was very curious about it. The size of the star wasn't large. It was estimated to be only 7 or 800,000 miles in diameter. Moreover, the entire star was very dim. Xiao Yu and the others used less than 4 hours to arrive less than 1,000 miles away from the star. At this time, they could see the outline of the entire star. This star made everyone feel very strange because at this time, the entire star seemed to be divided into two completely different hemispheres. One half was black, and the other half was white. Originally, white should be very conspicuous, but the entire star didn't emit any light. If one looked at it from too far away, the star was just a blur, and it was impossible to distinguish the color. The star was also rotating slowly. When everyone landed on the star, they adapted and adjusted a little, and they didn't feel the rotation anymore. The position where everyone landed was just right in the middle of the black and white hemispheres. When they landed, they didn't feel the slightest abnormality. Standing on the surface of the star, when they looked carefully, there was nothing but black and white stones on their left and right. The pressure of the space was very normal, and they didn't feel any restrictions. This made everyone feel that something was wrong. Then, Xiao Yu and the others began to move. However, for safety's sake, everyone's speed was not fast, and they were always on the boundary between the black and white. For hours passed quickly, and they still didn't find anything strange. Xiao Yu threw a high-grade immortal artifact into the area covered by the black stones. A scene that shocked everyone appeared. The high-grade immortal artifact had just been thrown out, and before it landed, it disappeared. Even with Xiao Yu and the other's sharp eyes, they didn't see how it disappeared. Then, Xiao Yu threw a supreme-grade immortal artifact over. The effect was the same, and the supreme-grade immortal artifact disappeared directly. Frowning, Xiao Yu made up her mind and threw a low-grade divine artifact over. This time, the low-grade divine artifact didn't disappear directly. Instead, it inexplicably shattered into countless pieces. Then, the countless pieces turned into countless powder particles and finally disappeared. From this, it could be seen that the high-grade and supreme-grade immortal artifacts weren't moved or hidden. Instead, they were instantly turned into nothingness because their quality was too low. Even low-grade divine artifacts couldn't hold on for long before collapsing. One could imagine how powerful the invisible force was. Xiaoling Yu and the others all gasped. They were secretly glad that they didn't go to the sides just now. Xiaoling Yu then did another experiment in the area covered by the white stones, but the results were the same. In other words, on the entire star, other than the boundary between the black and white, was safe. The other areas were extremely dangerous. As for why the black and white stones on both sides were safe and sound, Xiaoling Yu and the others still couldn't figure it out. At this time, they were only considering one question, and that was whether to continue exploring. After all, they didn't have a goal in mind and didn't have a purpose. However, Xiaoling Yu and the others couldn't believe that there wasn't any opportunity on such a strange star. Moreover, everyone could easily imagine that this star was most likely set up by Tenchi. No one would believe that this star was naturally formed. Anyway, there's no danger now. Why don't we continue exploring? Elder Peng spoke first. Giving up before encountering any danger wasn't in Xiaoling Yu and the others' character. The three girls then nodded in agreement. Xiaoling Yu naturally didn't dawdle and immediately led everyone forward. However, he kept walking at the front of the group. For the sake of caution, Xiaoling Yu then took out the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron from his body. He placed it in front of him, but didn't block his vision. After advancing for another 30 days, Xiaoling Yu and the others still didn't find anything. Their patience was almost exhausted. After all, they still wanted to stop the powerhouses of the three realms. In fact, at this time, the powerhouses of the three realms had already exited the spatial passage and arrived on this star. These powerhouses of the three realms had also been worn down recently, so they were very careful. Moreover, after the various encounters with the two extreme palaces in Tenchi's treasure trove, they also landed on the boundary between the black and white parts of the star. Like Xiaoling Yu, they also experimented on both sides. Their thoughts were the same as Xiaoling Yu and the others. Since they were already here and didn't encounter any danger, these powerhouses of the three realms were unwilling to give up so easily. However, the direction they chose to advance was exactly the opposite of Xiaoling Yu and the others. As a result, all the powerhouses of the three realms who had survived Tenchi's treasure trove came to this star and traveled in the opposite direction. Chapter 478. Xiaoling Yu also expected that the experts of the three realms would also come to this planet, so he was not in a hurry to bring everyone to block the exit of the spatial passageway. After traveling on this planet for a few more months, Xiaoling Yu and the others suddenly discovered a golden light slowly flying in front of them. They cautiously chased after it. Unexpectedly, the golden light seemed to have discovered them. It did not wait for them to get close before it began to accelerate. That golden light was the only unusual discovery that Xiaoling Yu and the others had made since arriving on this planet for a long time. Naturally, they would not give up easily and began to speed up as well. However, no matter how fast Xiaoling Yu and the others were, they could not catch up to the golden light. However, they did not lose it either. After chasing for more than 10 days, the golden light suddenly stopped. Xiaoling Yu and the others also stopped. They did not approach because they felt that there must be a problem with the sudden stop of the golden light. What surprised Xiaoling Yu and the others even more was that after the golden light stopped for 100 breaths of time, it actually slowly flew towards them. Xiaoling Yu and the others did not know what was going on, so they slowly retreated, not daring to let the golden light approach them so easily. However, they had chased for a long time and finally caught up to the golden light with great difficulty. Moreover, the golden light seemed to be deliberately approaching them. If they continued to retreat, wouldn't it be contradictory? After thinking for a while, Xiaoling Yu and the others gathered their courage and stopped. They quietly waited for the golden light to approach. When the golden light was only 100 feet away from Shaolin Yu and the others, they finally saw clearly that the golden light was a cylindrical existence. It looked like a magic treasure, but it also seemed a little illusory. Upon closer inspection, the cylindrical golden light seemed to be composed of countless golden light spots. It was not a material object. If they looked at it a few more times, they would realize that the cylindrical golden light's appearance was very similar to the golden passageway in the spatial passageway. However, there was a clear difference in size between the two. When the golden light was only 200 feet away, Shaolin Yu and the others saw the figures of the experts of the three realms through the hollow of the cylinder. It was no wonder that the golden light had fled at full speed in the beginning, but it suddenly approached them in the end. It turned out that there was also a powerhouse on the opposite side approaching it. Shaolin Yu had expected to encounter the experts of the three realms, but she hadn't expected the situation to be like this. The experts of the three realms saw Shaolin Yu's group as well as the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. Thus, they stopped as well, and the golden cylinder hovered between the experts of the two sides, not moving in the slightest. Originally, the masters of the two sides were hostile to each other and would fight as soon as they met. But under such special circumstances, they could only look at each other with gloomy expressions. This golden cylinder must be related to the golden tube in the spatial passageway. Perhaps this golden cylinder is the key to obtaining that sacred artifact, Elder Peng reminded Shaolin Yu. Shaolin Yu had also thought of this earlier. Presumably, the experts of the three realms on the other side had also guessed a portion of it. Shaolin Yu then controlled the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron to release a suction force towards the golden cylinder, wanting to trap it within the cauldron. In the beginning, the golden cylinder really was pulled a few feet closer by the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, but soon after, the golden cylinder began to resist and no longer approach them. The sudden movement of the golden cylinder caused the experts of the three realms to have a bad premonition. However, when they saw the golden cylinder stop, they felt slightly more at ease. After staring at each other for a while longer, the experts of the three realms were the first to take action. They quickly charged towards the golden cylinder, and a few of them even sent their blood souls towards the golden cylinder. The golden cylinder simultaneously retreated, continuing to approach Shaolin Yu. Shaolin Yu's group retreated a little as well, but Shaolin Yu controlled the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron to face the golden cylinder. The experts of the three realms had no choice but to quickly stop, because if they continued forward, it was very likely that the golden cylinder would be forced into the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron's stomach. At that moment, the golden cylinder was less than 3 feet away from the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. This caused the experts of the three realms to be in a dilemma. The blood souls they had sent out earlier were all rejected by the golden cylinder. The eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron was still releasing a powerful suction force, but it had no effect on the golden cylinder that was already on guard. Shaolin Yu's group was also helpless against the golden cylinder. The situation was in a stalemate again. The left and right sides were danger zones that could not be touched, and the experts of both sides were unwilling to continue forward. Apart from standing still, everyone could only retreat. However, under such circumstances, which side would be willing to retreat? Even if they stood still, there was no chance. They could not retreat and allow their opponents to cast their spells. It's also only moving along this line. I reckon it won't dare to rashly enter the areas on both sides, said Elder Peng as he stroked his beard. In other words, the invisible special forces on both sides can suppress it, added Miaoing. I reckon that if we want to obtain it, we'll have to do something in the areas on both sides, said Anya. But both sides are so dangerous. How can we use the special forces on both sides? Asked Qing Xian helplessly. Shaolin Yu remained silent. While everyone was discussing, he controlled the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron to fly toward the area covered by the black rocks. What shocked Shaolin Yu and the experts of the three realms was that when the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron flew into the air above the black rocks, the entire planet suddenly trembled. Then, the originally dim planet suddenly shone with a black and white light. If someone were to look from afar, they would discover that the originally dim, starry sky had instantly become bright. Even the black light released by the planet was so conspicuous in the starry sky. The eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron was not destroyed by the invisible, powerful force. Instead, it lasted for 10 breaths of time above the black rocks before it was pushed to the boundary between the black and white areas by the powerful force. When the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron returned to its original position, the entire planet stopped trembling and withdrew the black and white light. Sacred artifacts could not be destroyed, but they could not resist the powerful force. It was no wonder that the golden cylinder kept moving along this line. Shaolin Yu first observed the state of the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron and did not find anything unusual. Then, he made the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron fly towards the area covered by the white rocks. Just like before, when the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron arrived above the white rocks, the entire planet trembled violently again and released a black and white light at the same time. However, what Shaolin Yu did not expect was that before the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron was repelled, the golden cylinder had already flown to the area above the black rocks. The entire planet trembled even more violently, and the black and white light radiated millions of kilometers into the starry sky. The intensity of the shaking of the planet was so intense that Shaolin Yu and the other supremacy experts could not stabilize themselves. Although there was no danger in the intersection of black and white, this planet was too strange. Shaolin Yu also realized that he could no longer control the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, so he decisively led the few people on his side to escape into the starry sky. Based on the state of this planet, Shaolin Yu and the others had a feeling that this planet could explode at any time. This planet contained a powerful force that even sacred artifacts could not resist. Once it exploded, Shaolin Yu estimated that everyone would undoubtedly die here. Although the experts of the three realms were very reluctant, they did not dare to take the risk and escaped into the starry sky as well. Everyone raised their speed to the maximum, all wanting to escape as far as they could. Neither side had any plans to find trouble with the other at this time. The planet did not explode as they imagined, but not only did the planet spin faster, but it also shone brighter. After escaping far away, everyone first used all their defensive methods before looking at the planet. They were too far away, so they could not see anything clearly except for the black and white light that was constantly flashing. However, in less than 3 days, a circle of golden light flashed at the exit of the spatial passage not far from the planet. Then, everyone saw a golden rainbow fly out of the spatial passage. The golden rainbow flew towards the planet, and the spatial rift behind it slowly disappeared. It should be the golden pipe that flew out. Without it, the spatial passage will collapse, said Elder Peng. Everyone did not say anything, but continued to stare at the planet. The golden rainbow slammed into the black and white planet, and then everyone saw an aurora flash in front of their eyes, followed by an earth-shaking explosion. After being hit by the golden rainbow, the planet exploded, but it exploded into a black and white cloud. What surprised everyone even more was that after the black and white cloud surged for a while, it gradually turned into a yin-yang Tai Chi diagram. The yin-yang Tai Chi diagram slowly rotated. Although it was far away, it appeared very clearly in front of everyone. The eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron and the golden pipe-like sacred artifact were respectively located on the two fish eyes of the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram. The yin-yang Tai Chi diagram of unknown size was very quiet. Everyone stared at it for a few hours, but it did not show any abnormalities, so some bold experts flew over. After all, there were 2 sacred artifacts over there. Although one of them already had an owner, the special situation over there gave everyone hope of snatching the sacred artifact. Although Shaolin Yu was cautious, she still flew over. However, when the 2 experts were still thousands of miles away from the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram, they were blocked by an invisible force and could no longer take half a step forward. After trying for a while, the Dragon Emperor and the other experts flew towards Shaolin Yu and the others. It seemed that they wanted to compete with Shaolin Yu and the others first. After all, the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron was not under Xiao Yu's control, and the Dragon Emperor and the other experts of the three realms had a much higher chance of winning. Xiao Yu and the others naturally would not retreat. Although they had temporarily lost the help of the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, Xiao Yu still had the equally powerful yin-yang mirror. Before the other party could get close, Xiao Yu took out the yin-yang mirror first. Chapter 479. As soon as the yin-yang mirror appeared, it flew away from Xiao Yu and toward the huge yin-yang Tai Chi diagram. At this time, the Dragon Emperor and the other powerhouses of the three realms had already flown over. However, before they could make a move, the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram began to flash and release a powerful aura, directly pushing all the powerhouses of the three realms near it far away. After everyone steadied themselves, they looked at the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram in horror and fear, only to find that the Tai Chi diagram was spinning rapidly and the original black and white colors were gradually blurring. It looked like a mass of gray light. There were two divine artifacts before, which should have balanced the energy fluctuations in the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram. However, the sudden addition of a divine artifact just now seems to have broken the balance. I just don't know what will happen next, Xiao Yu said with a solemn expression. No one knew what would happen next, nor could they guess or imagine. They could only continue to wait quietly. When the Dragon Emperor and the other powerhouses of the three realms saw that Xiao Yu had taken away another powerful Dharma treasure, they naturally felt that this was the best time to kill Xiao Yu and the others. So after stabilizing themselves, they flew toward Xiao Yu and the others. It's not suitable to fight them head-on now. After all, they won't always be together. It's best if we take them down one by one in the future, Elder Peng calmly reminded when he saw that the three women were in high spirits. Xiao Yu also agreed with Elder Peng's point of view, so she invited Fudi out. Everyone stood on Fudi's back, and Fudi flew at full speed to the side. Fudi was so fast that the Dragon Emperor and the other powerhouses of the three realms couldn't catch up at all. The two sides chased for about 3 days before something strange happened again at the location of the black and white planet. The circle of gray light suddenly exploded and turned into a circle of black and white yin and yang taijutsu. However, this circle of black and white taijutsu exploded again. Then, everyone saw countless streams of light flying in all directions at an extremely fast speed, accompanied by an extremely powerful aura shockwave. The powerhouses of both sides were all shocked. They immediately adjusted their direction and fled at full speed with their backs facing the shockwave. Everyone's speed was far inferior to the shockwave. Even though they were very far away, it was inevitable that it would catch up to them. Fortunately, the shockwave surged all the way, and its power was constantly weakening. The Dragon Emperor and the other powerhouses of the three realms had 2 supreme-grade defensive divine artifacts, so they naturally withstood it. In the last 200,000 years of light domain, Xiao Yu and the others used the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron to collect a large number of divine artifacts. Naturally, among them were supreme-grade defensive divine artifacts. Although they temporarily lost the Tai Chi cauldron's protection, they could use supreme-grade divine artifacts. The shockwave of aura swept past, and within a few breaths of time, it spread even further into the starry sky. Xiao Yu then came to a stop. He was shocked to discover that the originally empty starry sky was actually occupied by countless light spots. And they were. Were they stars? Were. What was even more surprising was that these planets were originally devoid of life, but they were now filled with life. Not long after, Xiao Yu discovered that the planet closest to them already had simple life forms. It was a scene of the beginning of chaos and the beginning of life. Xiao Yu suddenly saw a scene that contained the truth of chaos. It made him feel that everything was so magical and real. He didn't think too much about it. Instead, he tried his best to remember the scenes around him. He felt that it would be of great help to him in comprehending the truth of chaos. The storm gradually calmed down with the formation of the stars. Everyone looked at the changes around them, dumbfounded. Look, the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron is there. Miaoing, who had already reached the late stage of supremacy, was the first to recover. She pointed into the distance and shouted. Xiaoling Yu and the others looked over at the same time. They saw the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron floating alone in the space not far away. Xiaoling Yu spread his mind and instantly reached the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. Fortunately, the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron didn't resist Xiaoling Yu's mind. Under Xiaoling Yu's control, it flew close to them in the blink of an eye. Xiaoling Yu narrowed his eyes slightly and sensed the location of the yin-yang mirror. Although it wasn't close, Xiaoling Yu, who had a clear target, quickly led everyone to the yin-yang mirror. The yin-yang mirror didn't sever its relationship with Xiaoling Yu because of the previous incident. Like the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, it was controlled by Xiaoling Yu and stored in Xiaoling Yu's dantian. These two divine artifacts were undamaged and seemed to be more spiritual than before. The explosion of the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram probably brought them some benefits. The two divine artifacts that originally belonged to him were already in his hands. However, Xiaoling Yu wasn't prepared to give up on the golden cylindrical divine artifact. However, Xiaoling Yu didn't have a mental connection with the golden cylinder. He couldn't determine where the divine artifact was now. Everyone's divine senses weren't affected at all, but they couldn't cover every corner of the space. They could only release their divine senses and search in all directions. The Dragon Emperor and the other experts of the three realms were naturally searching as well. Compared to chasing Xiaoling Yu and the others, they felt that it was more important to find the divine artifact first. As they searched, everyone could see the formation of the space. They saw more and more light spots expand into planets. They also saw life gradually appear on those planets. The Heavenly Master's methods are truly beyond our imagination. That black and white planet from before should have been formed when the Heavenly Master used his great divine ability to refine all the planets in this part of the starry sky. He truly refined the universe's starry sky into a treasure. Elder Peng exclaimed in admiration. Haha, Tenchi naturally isn't just skilled in refining. He must be very strong himself. When we reach that level, we'll truly understand how powerful Tenchi is, Xiaoling Yu said with a smile. At this point, everyone should have had a taste of the Taoist master's various designs. Once the golden cylinder was found, this trip would be considered complete. Xiaoling Yu and the others searched for nearly 3 days, but still couldn't find the divine artifact. Instead, they bumped into several experts of the Demon Clan. What made Xiaoling Yu and the others feel very strange was that the experts of the Demon Clan didn't gather with the experts of the Immortal Realm and Demon Realm. Moreover, their expressions were very gloomy, as if someone owed them tens of millions of divine stones. Seeing the experts of the Demon Clan, Xiaoling Yu and the others immediately got into position. Xiaoling Yu even took out the yin-yang mirror. That divine artifact has already been obtained by Fairy Lan Yao of the Immortal Realm. Do you still want to continue fighting with us? The Dragon Emperor said with an ugly expression. Xiaoling Yu and the others were very surprised that Fairy Lan Yao had obtained the divine artifact. However, there were only 3 divine artifacts in total. Xiaoling Yu had already obtained 2, so he didn't care who took the last divine artifact. As a result, they were only stunned for a moment before coldly glaring at each other. No wonder there were only a few experts of the Demon Clan here. Fairy Lan Yao had obtained the divine artifact. Naturally, she wouldn't have discussed it with the Demon Clan. She must have taken the divine artifact and run as far away as possible. Moreover, the experts of the Immortal Realm and Demon Realm must have gathered together at that time. That was why the experts of the Demon Clan couldn't stop them. I admit that when we were inside, we Demon Clan let you down. However, you didn't suffer much damage. On the other hand, we Demon Clan and the Spirit Clan suffered heavy losses. Even the Qilin Demon Emperor was killed by you. Do you still want to be enemies with us Demon Clan? The Dragon Emperor said without the slightest bit of shame. Hee, you Demon Clan betrayed us and almost killed us all. Dragon Emperor, do you think that with just a few words you can write this matter off? Do you think that we will so easily let go of the anger in our hearts because of the Qilin Demon Emperor's death? You should know that you wanted to kill us. If we didn't have some ability, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to talk to you face to face right now. Xiao Lingyu sneered. Then what do you want? Do you really want to slaughter all of us, Demon Clan? The Dragon Emperor asked with a stern expression. Slaughter all of us, Demon Clan? I don't have that intention. However, you'll have to pay a heavy price for this. This price will be painful for you for a period of time. Xiao Lingyu said firmly. Xiao Dao, you really think too little of us, Demon Clan. Even if you have the help of the Sage Weapon, you may not be able to defeat us, Demon Clan. The Dragon Emperor snorted coldly. Then we'll know when we try. Xiao Lingyu replied indifferently. Then, she poured her power into the yin-yang mirror. Soon, 4 virtual monsters appeared. As soon as the 4 virtual monsters appeared, the 4 symbols territory was formed at the same time. Fudi also released his 7 stars territory, forming a dual territory with Xiao Lingyu's chaotic territory. Just the 4 symbols territory and the dual territory alone were enough to make Xiao Lingyu and the others invincible. The Dragon Emperor's expression was very ugly. First, he was furious that the Sage Weapon was stolen by the powerhouses of the immortal and demon realms. Then, he was looked down upon by Xiao Lingyu. His anger could no longer be suppressed. Hence, with a flash of golden light, he transformed into his original form. The Dragon Emperor's original form was a huge 5-clawed golden dragon. His entire body was overflowing with golden light, and his dragon's might was vast and mighty. The Dragon Emperor transformed into his original form for only one purpose, and that was to use his innate magical power. In the current situation, only his innate magical power could threaten the other party. The Phoenix Emperor was the same. She transformed into a huge and handsome fire phoenix. The demon venerable Yin Xiang transformed into a black eagle. The black feathers on his body were like rows of neatly arranged iron bars. As for the black tortoise, it revealed its mountain-like body. The powerhouses of the demon clan all appeared in their original forms. It looked like they were all preparing to use their innate magical power. However, the powerhouses of the demon clan could not use their innate magical power at the same time. Their innate magical power could not be stacked and would even conflict with each other. Chapter 480. As soon as the golden ripple was released, Xiao Lingyu and the others disappeared. Only the 4 monsters and the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron remained where they were. Xiao Lingyu and the others hid in the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron, which was the only reliable way to resist the Dragon Emperor's innate ability. Under the Dragon Emperor's innate ability's powerful space-time seal, only the Dragon Emperor himself was not restricted in the slightest. Although he could defeat the 4 monsters, he could not defeat the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron. After 200 breaths of time, the golden ripple dissipated and the space-time returned to normal. The Dragon Emperor's innate ability had ended, but it did not harm Xiao Lingyu and the others. All of you stop. After returning to his human form, the Dragon Emperor looked very weak, but his expression was much calmer. The several Demon Clan experts returned to their human forms and looked at the Dragon Emperor in confusion. They have the protection of the sacred artifact, so they are invincible. Our innate ability is useless against them. So what can we use to fight them? The Dragon Emperor said with a dispirited expression. The Demon Clan experts gradually calmed down and secretly agreed with the Dragon Emperor's words. The other party had the protection of the sacred artifact, so no attack could do anything to them. However, the Demon Clan experts did not have the protection of the sacred artifact. When the other party counterattacked, they would not be able to resist at all. If they continued to fight, they would definitely lose. The Demon Clan had already suffered a great loss. If these experts were to suffer any more casualties, the Demon Realm would be in chaos even without the invasion of other clans. Xiao Lingyu and the others had already come out of the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron and were once again in formation, looking like they were not going to give up just like that. What are your conditions? State them. The Dragon Emperor said weakly. To be honest, the Dragon Emperor and the other Demon Clan experts were very regretful. If they had known this would happen, they would not have attacked Xiao Lingyu and the others in the Two Extremes Palace. If the demon race and Xiaoling Yu were truly sincere in their cooperation, the three divine artifacts would definitely fall into their hands, and the demon race would easily be able to take one divine artifact from Xiaoling Yu and the others. First, hand over all the treasures you obtained from the Tenchi's treasury, including the three supreme-grade divine artifacts, Xiaoling Yu said calmly. This won't do. The black tortoise immediately shook its head and said, those three top-grade divine artifacts are our greatest gains from this trip. If we hand them over, wouldn't we have made this trip for nothing? Wouldn't our demon race's men have sacrificed themselves in vain? Xiaoling Yu only pursed her lips and smiled non-committally. Give it to them. As the Dragon Emperor spoke, he straightforwardly threw the top-quality divine sword he had obtained to Xiaoling Yu. The other Demon Clan experts saw the Dragon Emperor's expression and smiled bitterly. Then, they helplessly threw the other two supreme-grade divine artifacts and many other treasures they had obtained in the Flowing Light territory to Xiaoling Yu. The Dragon Emperor and the other Demon Clan experts who had calmed down were very clear that except for their lives, they had to agree to almost all of the other parties' conditions, including the three supreme-grade divine artifacts. The Demon Clan experts took out a total of more than 30 treasures. Xiaoling Yu knew that this was definitely not all the treasures they had obtained, but he did not pursue the matter. After all, he did not know how many treasures they had obtained. Next, one bottle each of the blood of a true dragon, phoenix, and qilin. As Xiaoling Yu spoke, she took out 3 jade bottles the size of buckets. Seeing these 3 jade bottles, all the Demon Clan experts' faces turned green. The 3 types of blood that Xiaoling Yu mentioned were only possessed by the Demon Clan's superior divine beasts. Although the Demon Clan did not lack these, not only was this a blow to their dignity, but it would also cause their bloodline to spread. Xiaoling Yu's 2 conditions were slaps to the Demon Clan experts' faces. Of course, for Xiaoling Yu and the others, this was the only way to vent their anger. The Dragon Emperor did not know whether it was because his body was too weak after activating his divine ability, or because he was angry, but his body was trembling at this moment. All the Demon Clan experts looked at the Dragon Emperor, and the Dragon Emperor hesitated for a moment before nodding. We also agreed to this condition, but we can't give you the qilin blood now. There's no need to rush the qilin blood essence. We're not in a hurry to leave the demon realm anyway. You can just send it over when you're done, Xiaoling Yu said with a seemingly generous smile. Although the Demon Clan experts were filled with anger, they could only suppress it. The situation was extremely unfavorable to them, so they could only suffer in silence. There are no other conditions, Xiaoling Yu said after thinking for a while. The expressions of the Demon Clan experts relaxed at the same time. They must have been very nervous just now. Then let's not delay here. Although the experts of the immortal and demon realms joined forces to take away the divine artifact, they can't leave the demon realm. Moreover, it is very likely that there will be conflicts between them. We should find them as soon as possible. After the Dragon Emperor finished speaking, he left with the Demon Clan experts. From their expressions when they left, it could be seen that they were very depressed and pained. This trip to the Tenchi's treasure was originally the Demon Clan's home ground, and they were the strongest. But at this time, not only did they suffer the greatest loss, but they also gained almost no benefits. They also provoked the disgust of Xiaoling Yu and the others. This made the Demon Clan experts not only lose face, but also feel very sullen. Of course, this was not because Xiaoling Yu had gone too far. It was just a punishment for making the wrong choice. The Demon Clan experts did not plan to search for the experts of the immortal and demon realms with Xiaoling Yu and the others. They controlled the entire demon realm, so they were naturally more confident in finding Fairy Lan Yao and the other experts of the immortal and demon realms. Xiaoling Yu and the others had obtained 2 saint artifacts and many divine treasures. They didn't care who took the last saint artifact. Of course, if possible, he didn't want the saint artifact to be taken away by Fairy Lan Yao. The Demon Clan experts had already flown away. Xiaoling Yu and the others naturally did not stay. They entered the divine dwellings and then flew at full speed in a direction. After several thousand years, Xiao Yu and the others finally returned to the divine dragon continent. Then, they went to the center of the continent without any hesitation. They entered the cave again and waited for the demon clan experts to deliver the 3 bottles of essence blood. The Dragon Emperor had not returned to the divine dragon continent. The dragons did not know what had happened at the Tenshi's treasure trove. Therefore, the dragons on the divine dragon continent were very polite to Xiao Yu and the others. Xiao Yu and the others had no intention of making things difficult for these ordinary dragons. The demon realm was too vast. Xiao Yu and the others did not have any forces to borrow. Therefore, they did not search for the experts of the immortal and demon realms, nor did they blindly search for the Ice Soul Heavenly Silkworm. Long before they went to the Tenshi's treasure trove, the Dragon Emperor had already issued the mission of searching for the Ice Soul Heavenly Silkworm to the entire demon clan. Xiao Yu did not have to worry too much about this. In the current situation, Xiao Yu believed that the demon clan would not dare to play any tricks. After arriving at the divine dragon continent, Xiao Yu also asked a few dragons who had stayed behind to guard the divine dragon continent. From them, he learned that in recent years, no disciples of the dragons had come out of the dragon's secret realm. The devourer of heaven must still be cultivating in the secret realm. While waiting, Xiao Yu sorted out the treasures he had obtained. He gave a few supreme-grade divine tools to the 3 women and Elder Pong to protect themselves. Then, the few of them began to blood bond with the treasures they had obtained in the cave. As for Xiao Yu, while blood bonding with the 2 divine tools, he recalled the scene after the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram exploded. After tens of thousands of years, Xiao Yu and the others were getting impatient. The Dragon Emperor finally returned. Naturally, there were other demon clan experts who came back with the Dragon Emperor. However, from their expressions, it could be seen that they did not manage to snatch the divine tool. However, the Dragon Emperor still sent 3 bottles of blood essence over. Xiao Yu only wanted these 3 bottles of blood essence to strike a blow to the demon clan experts. He did not think of how to use them, so he put them away indifferently. We found them, but unfortunately, they escaped again. Now, they must be hiding even tighter. I reckon that they will first refine the divine tool before coming out, the Dragon Emperor said with a gloomy face. The demon realm is so vast. If they want to hide, it's naturally difficult to find them, Xiao Yu replied casually. Xiao Yu, don't tell me you don't plan to return to the immortal realm? The Dragon Emperor asked curiously. Of course I want to go back, but I'm not in a hurry, Xiao Yu replied. Then, Xiao Yu, do you have a way to go back? Don't tell me you want to wait for a crack to appear in the spatial barrier between the immortal realm and demon realm? The Dragon Emperor asked again. Naturally, I can't wait that long. To be honest, I don't have a way to go back, Xiao Yu said with a frown. After the Dragon Emperor's reminder, Xiao Yu realized that this was indeed a problem. How could they go back? Actually, the last divine tool has the function of piercing through the 2 realms and forming a spatial tunnel. However, that divine tool is now in the hands of Fairy Lan Yao and the others, the Dragon Emperor said with a hint. That's one way. Xiao Yu understood the Dragon Emperor's meaning, but he just nodded calmly. Besides seeing the Devourer of Heaven and finding the Icy Soul Heavenly Silkworm, do Xiao Yu and the others have anything else to do in the demon realm? The Dragon Emperor asked again. Lord Dragon Emperor seems to want us to leave as soon as possible, Xiao Yu said with a smile. The Dragon Emperor's expression was a bit awkward. He really wanted Xiao Yu and the others to leave as soon as possible. These people already had a bad relationship with the demon realm. Their presence in the demon realm could not make the demon realm experts feel at ease. Don't worry. As long as we can find the Icy Soul Heavenly Silkworm and see the Devourer of Heaven again, we won't stay in the demon realm. In fact, we also want to return to the immortal realm, Xiao Yu said sincerely. That's good. I will tell the demon realm to increase their efforts to find the Icy Soul Heavenly Silkworm. However, if we find expert from the immortal realm and demon realm, I ask you to go over. Of course, You can rest assured that we have no intention of obtaining the divine tool. The Dragon Emperor also seemed very sincere. Chapter 481. I don't need too many this month. I just need everyone to gather 300 gold medals. Right now, I'm still short of 60 gold medals. I think this shouldn't be too difficult for everyone. In the last few days, Xiao Fei would still try her best to update as much as possible. Recently, Xiao Fei really couldn't spare any time during the day. She had to stay up late to work hard. In July, Xiao Fei would stabilize the update time during the day. By then, everyone wouldn't have to wait so long. Once again, thank you for your strong support. Chapter 482. The Dragon Emperor and the other Demon Clan powerhouses had indeed worked hard. They only made Shaolin Yu wait for another few thousand years before they brought back news of the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm. According to the Dragon Emperor, the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm should be on a continent called the Ice Snow Continent in the Demon Realm, and its cultivation was not low. It was also because the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm's cultivation was not low, and it was very good at hiding that the Demon Clan powerhouses who encountered it by chance did not leave it behind. After receiving this news, Shaolin Yu and the others immediately rushed to the Ice Snow Continent. The Ice Snow Continent was very far from the Divine Dragon Continent. Shaolin Yu and the others teleported for nearly 10,000 years before arriving at the Ice Snow Continent. The Dragon Emperor's information was not very accurate. He could only confirm that the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm had appeared on the Ice Snow Continent 10,000 years ago. He could not guarantee that the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm was still on the Ice Snow Continent. However, after flying on the Ice Snow Continent for a while, Shaolin Yu was sure that if the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm had come to the Ice Snow Continent, it would definitely not leave. This was because this was the most suitable place for the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm to cultivate. Not only was this a world of ice and snow with extremely low temperature, but there were also countless snow demons. The entire Ice Snow Continent was almost completely covered by ice and snow. The area was very vast. If the snow demons wanted to hide in this environment, it would be very difficult to find them. Back then, when Shaolin Yu went to look for the demon head Ice Soul Grass, she had experienced this special environment. However, now that they were all venerable rank powerhouses, the range of their divine senses was extremely wide. It was not difficult to search an entire continent. After discussing for a while, they separated for the time being. They each chose a direction to search for the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm. Of course, before separating, Anya naturally presented the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm's image before it ascended. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. Shaolin Yu was about to find the end of the continent in this direction when she received a message from Qing Xian. After receiving the message, Shaolin Yu rushed back at full speed. It took 100 years to come, but it only took half a year to return. At this moment, Anya and Miao Ying had also rushed back. One of them had borrowed the speed of the unforgivable divine sword, while the other was a late-stage monarch. Naturally, their speed was not slower than Shaolin Yu. Tell me in detail what exactly happened. Shaolin Yu asked with a puzzled expression. The icy soul Heavenly Silkworm was taken away. My little Snow was also taken away. Qing Xian was in low spirits as she continued. It was Little Snow who found the Ice Soul Heavenly Silkworm. At that time, there was an old woman beside the Ice Soul Heavenly Silkworm. Little Snow had just run over when she was captured by the old woman. Then, the Ice Soul Heavenly Silkworm used countless white threads to tie Little Snow up. When it released the countless white threads, Little Snow was already gone. I think Little Snow was eaten by the Ice Soul Heavenly Silkworm. Xiao Shui was referring to the ferret in Qing Xian. Little Snow is now a monarch. Her speed is not inferior to a monarch elite's. She is also very agile. How could she have been captured so easily? Shaolin Yu interrupted. I don't know. I only know that the old woman's level was very high. At least, it was much, much higher than mine. When I stood in front of the old woman, I couldn't feel any of her aura at all. I couldn't figure out her level of cultivation. Qing Xian explained helplessly. Could it be a hidden elite of the fiends? Xiaoling Yu frowned and said, Probably not. Qing Xian shook her head and said, After the ice soul heavenly silkworm swallowed little Snow, that old woman muttered to herself that she'd succeeded and that it was time to return. She even said that she'd definitely shock eccentric Dugu in the future. After that, she executed some sort of technique, and with a wave of her hand, a spatial black hole actually appeared behind her, and then she vanished. From the beginning to the end, the old woman didn't even look at me. It was as if I wasn't worth her attention at all. Could it be a God Realm elite? Xiaoling Yu said with a face of surprise. I think it's very possible. Although I'm in the early stages of the Monarch Realm, there shouldn't be any elite in the three realms who can ignore my existence. Moreover, a Monarch Realm elite can't just casually enter a spatial black hole. Qing Xian nodded in response. Can God Realm elites descend to the lower realm? Miaoing asked in disbelief. Yes. When I was in the cultivation world, I saw 2 God Realm elites descend from the lower realm. However, after I ascended, I didn't encounter such a situation again. Moreover, I haven't heard of any God Realm elites descending to the 3 realms. Xiaoling Yu said with a gloomy face. If Lil Bing was really brought to the God Realm, then it'll be difficult to find him. I reckon that the God Realm must be very big. Moreover, to be able to descend from the God Realm and return so calmly, the woman who took Lil Bing away definitely isn't an ordinary person in the God Realm. Anya said worriedly, Let's search in the Demon Realm first. If we can't find him in the Demon Realm, then we'll continue searching in the Immortal Realm and Devil Realm. If we really can't find him, then it's most likely that he really went to the God Realm. In that case, we can only wait until we ascend to the God Realm. Xiaoling Yu said rather helplessly. After that, Xiaoling Yu and the others returned to the Divine Dragon Continent and asked the Dragon Emperor to help continue searching for traces of the icy soul heavenly silkworm. Of course, they naturally wouldn't tell the Dragon Emperor what Qing Xian saw. They only said that they went to the ice snow continent and didn't find the icy soul heavenly silkworm. Naturally, the Dragon Emperor could only agree to this. He was secretly glad that he didn't cancel the search mission. They waited in the Divine Dragon Continent for several tens of thousands of years. Suddenly, one day, a heaven-shaking dragon's roar rang out. That dragon's roar clearly contained some excitement and excitement. Accompanying that dragon's roar was a vast and mighty dragon's might that covered the sky and covered the earth. It shocked all the dragons in the vicinity. Xiaoling Yu and the others were also quite shocked. They left the cave together and raised their heads to look. They saw a huge dragon over 100,000 feet long, spiraling in the sky. As it bared its fangs and brandished its claws, it unceasingly let out dragon's roar and unceasingly spread its mighty dragon's might. That dragon's roar could pierce through metal and stone. That dragon's might was definitely not the slightest bit inferior to that of an emperor-level 5-clawed golden dragon. That huge dragon clearly had 5 claws. However, unlike ordinary 5-clawed golden dragons that were covered in golden dragon scales, it was covered in purple gold scale armor. Not bad, not bad. This fellow has also reached Emperor tier. However, it's still the same as before. Every time it comes out, it likes to be in the limelight, Xiaoling Yu said happily after recovering from her astonishment. Xiaoling Yu had already recognized that the purple gold 5-clawed dragon above her head was the devourer of heaven that had continuously progressed from a large snake to a mutated superior divine beast. Oomph. You stayed in the secret realm for 1,000,000 years, yet you're still so impudent after coming out. The Dragon Emperor flew into the sky and loudly reprimanded her. At that moment, the devourer of heaven seemed to have sensed Xiaoling Yu's aura. Its huge dragon head faced the ground, and its 2 dragon eyes stared intently at Xiaoling Yu. Why aren't you coming down yet? When the Dragon Emperor saw that the Devourer of Heaven was still hovering in mid-air after his reprimand, he became angry again. He leaped up and fiercely stomped on the Devourer of Heaven's back with both feet. Even though the Devourer of Heaven's bloodline was rather high and had reached Emperor tier, its strength was still far from the Dragon Emperor, who was at Emperor tier. Therefore, its body was instantly stomped down from midair by the Dragon Emperor, and its huge body heavily smashed onto the ground. The Devourer of Heaven's skin was rough and thick, and the Dragon Emperor would not intentionally hurt it. Therefore, it flew up again and waved its dragon claws at the Dragon Emperor. The expressions of the dragons who were watching all changed. In countless years, this was the first time a disciple of a dragon dared to attack the Dragon Emperor on the Divine Dragon Continent. The Devourer of Heaven was very unhappy with the Dragon Emperor. Firstly, the Dragon Emperor had locked it in the secret realm for millions of years. Secondly, it had just reunited with its master and was immediately stomped down from midair by the Dragon Emperor, which made it feel very embarrassed. In addition, other than its master, Xiaoling Yu, it would never yield to anyone, nor would it think of respecting or giving face to anyone. Therefore, it dared to attack the Dragon Emperor. Bastard! The Dragon Emperor was even angrier. He immediately released his domain, and the Devourer of Heaven's dragon claws were forcefully stopped a few feet away from his body. Down! The Dragon Emperor slightly adjusted the pressure of his domain, and the Devourer of Heaven was once again pressed to the ground. This time, the Devourer of Heaven was unable to fly up again. Anya wanted to help the Devourer of Heaven, but was stopped by Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu said, "Let this brat suffer a little. Otherwise, he will think that he is so powerful after reaching the Overlord tier." The Devourer of Heaven was firmly suppressed by the Dragon Emperor's aura. Its claws scratched the ground for a while, and it struggled for a long time but was unable to get up. In the end, it could only look at Xiaoling Yu with its pitiful eyes as if to say, "Master, are you not embarrassed to watch me get bullied?" Xiaoling Yu smiled and walked in front of the Devourer of Heaven. The Dragon Emperor was very tactful and did not use his domain to restrict Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu knocked the Devourer of Heaven's head and said with a smile, "All right, you're already at the Overlord tier. Why are you still acting like a child? I didn't teach you this when we were in the cultivation world." The Devourer of Heaven nodded, but still looked very wronged. Seeing the Devourer of Heaven being so obedient in front of Xiaoling Yu, the Dragon Emperor was very puzzled and a little uneasy. When the Devourer of Heaven was first brought to the Dragon Emperor also carefully checked and did not find that the Devourer of Heaven had recognized a master. Since it did not recognize a master, why was the Devourer of Heaven so respectful to Xiaoling Yu? The Dragon Emperor was very puzzled. He felt that this matter was a little unreasonable. He thought that Xiaoling Yu and the Devourer of Heaven were just old acquaintances. At most, they had cultivated together for a period of time, but he did not expect the two to have such a good relationship. In fact, many powerhouses of the dragons were determined to cultivate the Devourer of Heaven to become the next Dragon Emperor, so they strictly disciplined it. The Dragon Emperor then withdrew his domain and said after landing, "I'm not strict enough in disciplining it. I made a fool of myself in front of everyone." Xiaoling Yu replied, "I'm the one who is not strict enough in disciplining it. Since it ascended to the demon realm, it has been thanks to the dragon's fellow Taoists who have taught it on its behalf. This Xiao is really grateful." The Dragon Emperor's words were probing, but Xiaoling Yu's reply was very straightforward. Chapter 483. Sky-Devouring Dragon's performance left all the experts from the dragon tribe dumbfounded. The Devourer of Heaven, who was almost confirmed to be the next Dragon Emperor, was actually clinging to the shoulder of a human expert like a small snake. This made all the dragons feel that they must have seen wrongly. They felt that this was not reality. The Emperor of the Dragons was the Emperor of the Demon Clan. He must have a certain level of dignity. Even if the Devourer of Heaven would not become the Dragon Emperor, he was still a mutated super mythological beast. He was an existence nobler than the five-clawed golden dragon. How could he attach himself to a human cultivator? The Dragon Emperor did not know what to say. He could only leave in a huff. The other dragons also retreated. Xiao Yu brought the Devourer of Heaven back to the cave and began to ask him about his experiences over the years. Since he was already an Emperor-rank beast, the Devourer of Heaven could actually transform into a human form. Naturally, he could communicate with Xiao Yu and the others without hindrance. However, the Devourer of Heaven did not seem to be used to transforming into a human. He seemed to feel that he should not be the same as his master, so he had never transformed into a human form. Although Xiao Yu had dissolved the master-servant relationship with the Devourer of Heaven, in the Devourer of Heaven's heart, Xiao Yu would always be his master. This was something that could not be changed by anyone. What made Xiao Yu and the others speechless and amused was that after the Devourer of Heaven ascended, he really did a lot of outrageous things. This was because when he was in the cultivation world, he basically did not go out alone to train. Most of the time, he slept or cultivated in Xiao Yu's spirit beast bag. Especially after arriving at the Divine Dragon Continent, the Devourer of Heaven did not give in to anyone. Not only did he cause a ruckus in all the dragon's forbidden areas when he first arrived, he even flirted with the Dragon Emperor's daughter. At that time, the Dragon Emperor's daughter was also in her original form. Moreover, she was swimming in the sea and happened to meet the Devourer of Heaven. Then, the Devourer of Heaven pestered her. After all, the Devourer of Heaven was a male, and the Dragon Emperor's daughter was a female. There was a natural attraction between the two. The Devourer of Heaven had that opportunity because the Dragon Emperor regarded him as an important target of cultivation and protection. Otherwise, he would not have been able to come to the nearby sea, flirting with the Dragon Emperor's daughter. If it was not for the fact that the Devourer of Heaven's cultivation was not high at that time, he would have almost done with the Dragon Emperor's daughter. The Dragon Emperor was furious and sent him into the Dragon Emperor's secret realm in a fit of anger. "You are so brave. You even dared to touch the Dragon Emperor's daughter. If you were not a special existence, the Dragon Emperor would have already peeled off your dragon skin and pulled out your dragon tendons." Anya said with a smile. "How noble is this dragon? Don't tell me I am not worthy of that female dragon." At that time, that female dragon actually intended to cooperate. It's just that I suddenly felt that there was still a gap between her and my dream lover, so I didn't go any further. The Devourer of Heaven said arrogantly and unconcernedly. When the three women heard the Devourer of Heaven's words, they all laughed until they were swaying back and forth. Xiao Yu could only smile bitterly. She did not know if she should encourage the Devourer of Heaven or scold him. Everyone had just talked in the cave for a while when the Dragon Emperor came looking for them again. "Xiao Daoyu, will you take the Devourer of Heaven away?" The Dragon Emperor first greeted everyone politely and then asked. "Of course I will take him away." Xiao Yu replied with certainty. "What if he becomes the Dragon Emperor after me?" The Dragon Emperor asked again. "He is not made to be an emperor." Xiao Yu shook her head. "No one is born to be an emperor. This can be trained." The Dragon Emperor refused to give up. "That depends on whether he is willing or not. If he is willing to stay, I naturally will not force him to leave." Xiao Yu replied indifferently. "Master, I want to follow you. This Divine Dragon Continent is too boring. I don't want to stay, and I don't want to be some Dragon Emperor." The Devourer of Heaven then bluntly replied, not giving the Dragon Emperor any face. Xiao Yu helplessly spread her hands at the Dragon Emperor, as if to say, "I didn't force him, he was the one who didn't want to stay." The Dragon Emperor's expression was very ugly. To be exact, ever since the trip to the Tenchi's treasure, his expression had not been good. As the Emperor of the Dragons and one of the rulers of the Shifters, the Dragon Emperor had to choose an emperor for the dragons and the entire Shifters before he went through the divine tribulation. Moreover, this emperor had to have very high talent and strength. The Devourer of Heaven was naturally the best choice, although there were other five-clawed golden dragons on the Divine Dragon Continent. Actually, Xiao Daoyu will also delay him if you bring him along. He can only develop more on the Divine Dragon Continent. The Dragon Chi here is very helpful to him and is most suitable for his long-term cultivation. Furthermore, on the Dragon Clan's side, it can gain a deeper understanding of the Dragon Clan's battle skills. At this point, The Dragon Emperor did not see any change in Xiao Yu's expression. He then continued, "The most important thing is if he can become the Dragon Emperor, he can enter my clan's ancestral shrine and receive guidance from my clan's divine realm powerhouse." This last point really moved Xiao Yu. The Dragon Emperor then continued, "Entering my clan's ancestral shrine can only be done by my clan's emperor, or led by my clan's emperor. Moreover, only one disciple can be brought in at a time. The disciple that is led must also be the successor of the Dragon Emperor. In other words, only I can enter now, and only I can bring in my clan's disciple. Xiao Daoyu, don't have any other ideas on this matter. My clan's ancestral shrine was set up by my clan's powerhouse in the ancient times. Naturally, there are no shortcuts or tricks. If the Devourer of Heaven leaves, it's equivalent to giving up this excellent opportunity." Xiao Yu frowned and pondered for a while, then said, "How about we let the Dragon Emperor lead the Devourer of Heaven into the ancestral shrine first, and after he comes out, we'll bring him out. What do you think?" The Dragon Emperor smiled and shook his head, saying, "Once he enters the ancestral shrine, he'll be the Dragon Emperor when he comes out. He'll never be able to abandon the dragons, because when he sees my clan's divine realm powerhouse in the ancestral shrine, he'll have to make a soul oath in front of my clan's divine realm powerhouse." Hearing this, Xiao Yu fell into deep thought and hesitated. There were undoubtedly many benefits if he stayed. If he let the Devourer of Heaven follow him, it definitely wouldn't be of much help to him. Secondly, he wouldn't be able to give the Devourer of Heaven too many benefits. Thirdly, their cultivation was higher than the Devourer of Heaven, so they would definitely ascend earlier than the Devourer of Heaven. At that time, they'd have to separate, and it probably wouldn't be for too long. "What do you think?" Xiao Yu asked the Devourer of Heaven. "I just want to follow Master. Following Master is the true benefit." The Devourer of Heaven spoke very firmly. "Haha, I think you should stay. You have to think about your future. The divine realm isn't the end of cultivation." Xiao Yu was very satisfied with the Devourer of Heaven's attitude, but he still smiled and patted the Devourer of Heaven's head. "No way, Master. We just met again, and you're going to abandon me?" The Devourer of Heaven said in a surprised and aggrieved tone. "I'm not abandoning you. I'm just thinking about you." Xiao Yu first explained, then comforted, "We'll meet again in the future. At least this time, we'll know each other's situation. Besides, we're not master and servant. We're friends. Have you ever seen friends who want to be together forever?" The Devourer of Heaven shook his head, as if he didn't really understand what Xiao Yu meant. He seemed to hesitate for a while, then said, "In any case, Master, you have the final say. I'll do whatever you want me to do." This sentence made Xiao Yu feel touched again, and even almost made Xiao Yu change his mind. However, Xiao Yu couldn't be so selfish. Based on the principle of thinking more for the Devourer of Heaven's future, he felt that the Devourer of Heaven should indeed stay. This was just like going to school on Earth. His parents definitely couldn't bear to part with him, but they still sent him to a university in a foreign land. And under normal circumstances, it was very likely that he would have to work after attending university, and it was also very likely that he would have to go to a foreign land. Sometimes, temporarily giving up was necessary, and it wasn't cruel. After getting a satisfactory answer from Xiao Yu, the Dragon Emperor's expression finally looked better. However, Xiao Yu still suggested to the Dragon Emperor to let the Devourer of Heaven enter the dragon's ancestral shrine as soon as possible to be on the safe side. In terms of the rules for the succession of the Emperor, the dragons were the same as the phoenixes and the Kirans. The successor needed to be at least at the early stage of the Emperor-level cultivation. The Devourer of Heaven was satisfied with this. The Dragon Emperor had been at the supremacy level for many years, and wasn't far from the late stage of the supremacy level. Passing on the throne now was also in accordance with the rules. In order to retain the Devourer of Heaven, and at the same time to take responsibility for the huge losses he had caused to the dragons and the Goblin clan due to his improper handling of the Tenchi's treasure, the Dragon Emperor agreed to Xiao Yu's suggestion without hesitation. After a period of preparation, he brought the Devourer of Heaven into the dragon's ancestral shrine. The dragon's ancestral shrine was naturally on the divine dragon continent. Although it was also in a cave, that cave was indeed, as the Dragon Emperor had said. It was very tightly arranged, and the aura of the restriction that faintly leaked out from it made Xiao Lingyu's heart tremble. Xiao Lingyu had enough reason to believe that the Dragon Emperor wouldn't scheme against the Devourer of Heaven, because this wouldn't benefit the dragons or the Dragon Emperor in the slightest. Moreover, it would also offend him. Therefore, he was very assured that the Devourer of Heaven would follow the Dragon Emperor. He was just worried that the Devourer of Heaven's temper might anger the dragons of the heavenly realm. Although Xiao Lingyu was very surprised that the dragons had a way to communicate with the experts of the heavenly realm from the demon realm, he still believed it. This was because this was publicly acknowledged in the three realms. After waiting for nearly 10,000 years outside the dragon's ancestral shrine, the Dragon Emperor finally came out with a cultivator wearing a purple gold soft armor. That cultivator wearing the purple gold soft armor looked very young. He seemed to be an 18 or 19-year-old youth in the secular world. He was tall and sturdy, with thick eyebrows and dragon eyes, red lips, white teeth, and a broad forehead. Although his appearance looked like a handsome talent, his gaze and demeanor were shifty, giving people a very restless feeling. Xiao Lingyu and the others didn't need to use their feet to guess that this young cultivator was the Devourer of Heaven. However, this was the first time the Devourer of Heaven faced everyone in human form, which made everyone feel very strange. Chapter 484. After wearing the dragon crown, he naturally became the Dragon Emperor. The Emperor of the Dragons naturally had to be with the dragons and stay in the divine dragon continent. Although the experts of the dragons were not surprised that the Devourer of Heaven had become the Dragon Emperor so quickly, they felt that it was too hasty. They were all worried about whether the Devourer of Heaven could become a qualified emperor. After becoming the Dragon Emperor, the Devourer of Heaven also obtained the inheritance treasure of the dragons, which was that golden bead with the quality of a top-grade divine artifact. In order to congratulate the Devourer of Heaven on becoming the Dragon Emperor, Xiao Lingyu also selected a top-grade offensive divine artifact of good quality from the storage ring and gave it to the Devourer of Heaven. In this way, the Devourer of Heaven would have both offensive and defensive divine artifacts. In addition to his mutated super-divine beast bloodline, he believed that even if he encountered an ordinary venerable rank expert, he would at least be able to survive. In this way, Xiao Lingyu was relieved. There was no way to leave the demon realm at the moment, so Xiao Lingyu and the others were naturally not in a hurry to leave. They still stayed in the divine dragon continent to accompany the Devourer of Heaven. With Xiao Lingyu in the divine dragon continent, the Devourer of Heaven was naturally very obedient. However, Xiao Lingyu still cooperated with the previous Dragon Emperor to teach the Devourer of Heaven so that he could learn to become a qualified emperor. He wanted him to understand the meaning and responsibility of being an emperor. The Devourer of Heaven's expression gradually disappeared, and he became more and more like an emperor. This made Xiao Lingyu and the previous Dragon Emperor very pleased. Not long after, Ling'er finally woke up in the spiritual abode. Xiao Lingyu and the others couldn't tell how much her cultivation had improved. However, after a battle between Qing Xian and Ling'er, everyone was certain that Ling'er possessed the strength of a venerable rank. Ling'er had grown from a mutated illusionary spirit grass, and her soul had been destroyed once. Her current soul was the soul of the Princess Mononoke. Her original soul had been devoured by the Princess Mononoke using the Devil Fetus secret technique, but Xiao Lingyu had erased the Princess Mononoke's consciousness and memories and helped her reconstruct them. Therefore, Ling'er was very loyal to Xiao Lingyu and would never betray her. Ling'er could also be considered a type of spirit clan, and an illusionary spirit clan at that. However, to be precise, she was a mutated illusionary spirit, and her main method of increasing her strength was to devour illusionary spirits. As a result, Linger was very different from ordinary illusionary spirits. She now had the strength of a venerable rank, but there was no divine power in her body. Therefore, Xiaoling Yu and the others couldn't accurately determine her realm. Linger's greatest uniqueness was that her body could turn from solid to illusory. In her illusory state, she was almost invulnerable to any attacks. It was as if she didn't exist in this space at all. Naturally, no one could attack her. With such a heaven-defying uniqueness, Linger was at least undefeated in the same realm. Even if her realm was one realm higher than hers, they wouldn't be able to do anything to her, unless their realm was much higher than hers. If there was anyone in the three realms who was undefeated, it would be Linger. However, Linger's attack level wasn't very strong. At least, Linger couldn't do anything to Xiaoling Yu and Anya. She also couldn't do anything to a late-stage venerable rank like Miaoying. Unfortunately, Linger couldn't use the various divine artifacts that Xiaoling Yu had obtained because her cultivation was unable to display the power of those divine artifacts. If Linger wanted to use a magic treasure, she had to use a special magic treasure that was suitable for her, and this kind of magic treasure probably didn't exist in the three realms. At this point, Xiaoling Yu's main goal in the demon realm had been achieved. The only pity was that she didn't see the icy soul heavenly silkworm, and it had been taken away. Now that Xiaoling Yu and the others had nothing to do in the demon realm, they naturally wanted to return to the immortal realm. However, with the spatial barrier between the two realms, it was easier said than done for them to return. The fastest and safest way was to find Fairy Lan Yao and the other experts of the immortal and demon realms and use the divine artifact golden cylinder to create a spatial tunnel to the immortal realm. However, the experts of the immortal and demon realms wouldn't easily reveal themselves, so it wasn't easy to find them. In fact, there was another way to return to the immortal realm. That was to break through the space of the demon realm and enter the spatial turbulence. Then, in the spatial turbulence of the three realms, they would find the spatial node of the immortal realm and break it to return to the immortal realm. As for the dangers of the spatial turbulence, Xiaoling Yu and the others could rely on the divine artifact eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron to resist. However, spatial turbulence was extremely vast. Trying to find a spatial node of the immortal dimension within it was no different than trying to find an embroidery needle in the ocean. So unless it was a last resort, Xiaoling Yu wouldn't lead everyone into spatial turbulence. After accompanying the Devourer of Heaven for a while, Xiaoling Yu and the others left the Divine Dragon Continent and rushed towards the continent closest to the spatial barrier between the immortal and demon realms. The reason why they were going now was because Xiaoling Yu felt that Fairy Lan Yao should have refined the divine artifacts soon. If they wanted to leave the demon realm, they would most likely have to activate the divine artifact before the spatial barrier between the immortal and demon realms. To Xiaoling Yu and the other surprise and joy, just as they arrived before the spatial barrier between the two realms, they saw a spatial tunnel entrance that had yet to disappear. Xiaoling Yu and the others didn't hesitate and directly entered the spatial tunnel. This spatial tunnel was very stable, and there weren't many spatial cracks wreaking havoc inside. Xiaoling Yu and the others didn't need any protection and could travel at full speed. After nearly 100 years, Xiaoling Yu and the others saw the familiar golden pipe. In order to safely return to the immortal realm and to not attract the attention of the divine artifact's owner, Xiaoling Yu and the others didn't touch the golden pipe. Instead, they quickly passed through it. The experts of the immortal and demon realms should be in front. They would definitely return to the immortal realm ahead of time. If they immediately put away the divine artifact after returning, it would be hard to say what would happen to Xiaoling Yu and the others. However, only 30 years had passed before Xiaoling Yu and the others returned to the immortal realm and flew out of the spatial tunnel. The golden pipe had already caught up. It looked like it wanted to close the spatial tunnel and fly back to the immortal realm. Xiaoling Yu immediately brought everyone into the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. Then, the cauldron was attached to the golden pipe and flew along with it. The golden tube moved extremely quickly. In less than 2 months, It had flown out of the spatial tunnel and arrived in a region of empty space. As expected, Fairy Lan Yao and the other experts of the two realms were waiting here. The golden pipe quickly shrank and turned into a golden cylinder. The eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron was naturally revealed, which shocked Fairy Lan Yao and the others. When Shaolin Yu and the others appeared, Fairy Lan Yao and the others all took a step back. Their expressions were clearly filled with fear. Before Shaolin Yu and the others could get into position, Fairy Lan Yao had already made the golden cylinder expand by 10 times. Then, they all entered the cylinder at the same time. The cylinder then turned into a golden light and disappeared into the sky. The other party's reaction was so fast that Shaolin Yu and the others were dumbfounded. They never thought that the other party would also have a divine artifact. They didn't have the courage to fight them at all. Indeed, even if they didn't count Ling, or who had just joined, the other party was definitely not a match for Shaolin Yu and the others. Just the number of monarchs was enough to determine the result. In fact, the other party only had 3 people left. One was Fairy Lan Yao, and the other 2 were a late-stage immortal monarch and a late-stage devil monarch. As for Huyin Lianxi and Tuoba Yi, the 2 devil monarchs, an immortal monarch Hu Yunzi, they had all died in the Tenchi's treasure vault. The golden cylinder was too fast. Shaolin Yu and the others couldn't catch up. They could only watch the experts of the 2 realms fly away. They are already disappointed. I'm afraid they won't dare to show their faces in the future. Elder Peng shook his head and smiled. Forget about them. Let's go back to the East Imperial Continent first. Shaolin Yu didn't seem to care. First, he took everyone to find the nearest continent in the immortal world. After finding it, everyone began to teleport. Shaolin Yu and the others could guess that the 3 monarchs would go to the demon-subduing continent and send the late-stage devil monarch back to the devil world. Or even the late-stage immortal monarch and Fairy Lan Yao would hide in the devil world. Although they guessed this, Shaolin Yu and the others didn't rush to the demon-subduing continent. Even if they chased after them, they would fall behind by a lot. If Fairy Lan Yao and the other experts really hid in the devil world, Shaolin Yu's life in the immortal world would be even easier. He didn't want to kill those monarchs. It took thousands of years for Shaolin Yu and the others to teleport back to the East Imperial Continent. All these years, the monarchs had been very busy and were not in the immortal world. Most of the forces in the immortal world that had just experienced the great immortal demon war were recovering their strength. The descendants of Earth were naturally not attacked again. Zhongji and the other descendants of Earth were living a peaceful life. The Nanhua Immortal School was also very peaceful. However, when Qing Xian returned to the sect, she heard that the previous sect master, Qing Pingzi, had failed to break through to the immortal supremacy realm. His body exploded when he tried to convert the immortal spiritual energy into god power. Qing Wei, on the other hand, was still trying to break through. The descendants of Earth listened to Shaolin Yu's orders and worked hard to have children. Although there were many conflicts between husband and wife, fortunately, the scale of the descendants of Earth had expanded by a lot. Zhongji was smarter. He had been single all this time. In order to avoid conflicts with his first wife, he directly married 5 fairies. It was said that all 5 of his wives were pregnant. When Zhongji saw Shaolin Yu, he smiled slyly and sized up Anya and the others. However, he said disappointedly, "Boss Xiao, I have to warn you on behalf of us descendants of Earth. Although you have married a lot, none of my sisters-in-law are pregnant. This is your fault. You are our boss. You have to set an example." Shaolin Yu could only smile awkwardly. Then, he replied perfunctorily, Okay. When I have time, I will definitely do this." Chapter 485. On the day the Huamen was established, Qing Xian added the South Flower Immortal School to the Huamen. Shaolin Yu went on to establish the East, West, and North Flower Immortal Schools, making them branches of the Huamen. When the Huamen was first established, aside from the South Flower Immortal School, almost all of the Huamen were made up of descendants from Earth. However, If the Hua men wanted to continue to be strong, they couldn't just rely on the power of descendants from Earth. They also needed to recruit experts from the immortal realm who weren't descendants of Earth. The Hua men had several supreme experts and a large number of divine treasures. These were important factors that attracted the experts from the immortal realm. On the first day the Hua men was established, Shaolin Yu and the other supreme experts showed up one after another. They showed off a little of their supreme strength, shocking the cultivators from the immortal realm who came to watch the ceremony. Naturally, many experts expressed their interest in joining the Hua men. In fact, on the first day the Hua men was established, they had already become the most powerful force in the immortal realm and even the three realms. The first thing the Hua men did after being established was to invade the Heaven's Incense School on the Wanhua continent. The Hua men didn't attack the Heaven's Incense School. Instead, they surrounded it. What puzzled the cultivators of the immortal realm was that the head of the Heaven's Incense School, Fairy Lan Yao, didn't come out to help the school. After being surrounded for a long time, their sect-protecting formation was easily broken. Then, all the female cultivators of the Heaven's Incense School became the Hua men's captives. The Hua men didn't kill any of the Heaven's Incense School disciples. Instead, they arranged for each of the beautiful female cultivators to have a husband. Some of the Heaven's Incense School disciples were even married to the same person at the same time. The female cultivators of the Heaven's Incense School were naturally married off to the descendants of Earth. This was also for the sake of the descendants of Earth. The female cultivators of the Heaven's Incense School were all highly talented, so they were naturally very suitable to be married off. However, Shaolin Yu didn't mistreat them. As long as they were willing, they could receive great rewards from the Hua men. Many of the female cultivators of the Heaven's Incense School even agreed to their marriage because of the great rewards. Of course, there were many people in the Heaven's Incense School who resisted to the death. Shaolin Yu locked them up for a while and didn't threaten them. He only let them calm down for a while and then tempt them. If they were still unwilling, they were to be released. After all, the Earth descendants were not very big, and many of them already had many wives and concubines. Shaolin Yu could not destroy the Heaven's Incense School just because of a bit of enmity with Fairy Blue Jade. As such, Shaolin Yu would not go too far with those who did not want to marry. It was the same everywhere in the cultivation world. As long as you were strong enough, everything you did was right. No one would dare to resist. Just like the Hua men against the Heaven's Incense School, it was a kind of naked invasion. The strength of the Hua men was obvious to all cultivators in the immortal world. Now that the Heaven's Incense School had been destroyed by the Hua men, joining the Hua men was a good choice for the female cultivators who didn't have a strong sense of sex or had just joined the Heaven's Incense School. As for becoming the wife of an Earth descendant, it wasn't a big deal. After all, everyone needed a male cultivator to be their Tao companion. Although the Earth descendants didn't all have extraordinary talent, they weren't bad people. Moreover, they were all rich now. After marrying them, they wouldn't have to worry about cultivation resources. Why wouldn't the female cultivators be happy? Even if they didn't marry an Earth descendant, they might be snatched away by other cultivators one day if they lost their sect. At least they could now make a choice among the Earth descendants. Moreover, the head of the Hua men was very considerate of their thoughts. The second thing the Hua men did after they were established was to destroy the Tiandao sect, where the immortal supremacy Hu Yunzi was. The news of Hu Yunzi's death in the demon world hadn't actually spread, but the experts of the Tiandao sect were well aware. Because the soul jade slip Hu Yunzi had left in the sect had shattered, the experts of the Tiandao sect consciously disbanded the Tiandao sect when the Hua men announced their attack on the Tiandao sect. Most of the experts left the Tiandao sect and went into hiding. There were also a few experts who expressed their willingness to join the Hua men. Shaolin Yu only had one condition for any non-Earth descendant cultivators who wanted to join the Hua men, and that was to swear allegiance to them. Before they ascended to the immortal realm, they weren't allowed to do anything that would harm the interests of the Hua men. Naturally, this condition wasn't unacceptable to the cultivators. The Hua men didn't have any intention of unifying the immortal realm. Although they had the power now, It wasn't beneficial to the development of the immortal realm and the growth of the Huaman. Therefore, Xiao Lingyu rejected everyone's suggestion. The Earth's descendants could finally hold their heads high in the immortal realm. Xiao Lingyu led his family and many experts of the Earth's descendants to pay their respects to Elder Qi once again. Everything that Xiao Lingyu had brought to the Earth's descendants was definitely worthy of Elder Qi. Xiao Lingyu still had a long way to go before he ascended to the immortal realm. During this time, his family would be in charge of the Huaman. Naturally, they could ensure the safety of the Huaman. They could also continue to help the Huamen stabilize their foundation and grow stronger. By the time he ascended to the immortal realm, the Huamen would have already taken root in the immortal realm. As long as nothing unexpected happened, they would continue to be strong. Of course, there was never a lack of accidents in the cultivation world. Who knew when someone as powerful as Xiao Lingyu would appear in the three realms? Or someone even more powerful than Xiao Lingyu? They could also shake the Huamen, but that wasn't something that Xiao Lingyu could control. He had already done his best for the Huamen. This was all he could do for the Earth's descendants. As time passed, the three realms gradually calmed down again. Everything seemed to have returned to its original trajectory. After many years of investigation, the investigator finally found Xiao Lingyu's sworn brother in the cultivation world, Gu Yunfei, on a very remote continent. Gu Yunfei ascended to the immortal realm almost at the same time as Anya. However, his luck wasn't very good. Not only did he stay on that remote continent, but his cultivation was also only at the early stage of the golden immortal realm. It was also because the continent Gu Yunfei was on was too remote that it took the investigator a long time to find him. The level of cultivation didn't matter. What Gu Yunfei cared more about was that his wife, Hualan was a flower people cultivator. After the flower people ascended, they went to the demon realm instead of the immortal realm. He and Hualan were separated from each other. Under normal circumstances, they would only have a chance to meet again after ascending to the immortal realm or after the war between the immortal realm and the demon realm. Many cultivators of different races weren't willing to intermarry with other races. In fact, it was more or less because of this point. After intermarrying with other races, they would be separated forever when they ascended. If their feelings for each other didn't reach a certain level, it would be very difficult for them to be together. Xiao Lingyu was helpless about this. Although he was still many years away from ascending, he definitely couldn't wait until the war between the immortal realm and the demon realm. However, he could help Gu Yunfei improve his strength. Gu Yunfei could wait until the space crack appeared between the immortal realm and the demon realm, and then go to the demon realm to find his wife. If he was lucky, Gu Yunfei might meet the Devourer of Heaven. With the help of the Devourer of Heaven, it would be much easier for him to find his wife, Hualan Xiao Lingyu naturally wouldn't be stingy with his sworn brother. Although Gu Yunfei's strength was still very low and he couldn't use a legendary equipment, Xiao Lingyu refined a token for him. With this token, Gu Yunfei could freely enter the Huaman's treasure vault. Naturally, he could choose any treasure inside. Of course, the reason why Xiao Lingyu refined such a token for Gu Yunfei was because he knew Gu Yunfei's character. He knew that Gu Yunfei definitely wouldn't take anything inside. Gu Yunfei naturally joined the Huaman. After settling him down, Xiao Lingyu really didn't have any regrets and could cultivate in peace. Peaceful time always passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, 1,000,000 years had passed. Xiao Lingyu finally cultivated to the late stage of the chaotic, divine transformation realm. His overall strength had increased by quite a bit compared to before. However, he suddenly came out of seclusion and flew to the Huaman's treasure vault. At this moment, in the sky above the Huaman's treasure vault, there was a golden pillar that was no less than 10,000 feet long and no less than 100 feet in diameter. It was falling towards the ground. The golden pillar was hollow in the middle. It was bursting with golden light and carried with it a heart-palpitating power. It was as if a pillar that supported the heavens had fallen, causing the Huaman's disciples to be extremely shocked. Qing Xian, Anya, Miao Ing, Linger, and Fudi had already flown up. They all frowned as they stared at the golden pillar. Xiao Lingyu recognized this golden pillar. It was the sacred artifact that Lan Yao Fairy had taken away. You guys work together to protect the sect's treasure vault. I'll deal with it. The sacred artifact's power was naturally not to be underestimated. After Xiao Lingyu shouted, he waved his hand and threw out the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron, smashing it towards the golden pillar. Boom! The two sacred artifacts fiercely collided. Then an explosion and a powerful shockwave swept out in all directions. The golden pillar was blocked by the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron. When the two collided, the shockwave that erupted was barely blocked by Qing Xian and the other Hua men's supremacies. Only then did the shockwave not damage the Hua men's treasure vault. Before the golden pillar could unleash its power again, Xiao Lingyu had already sent out a primal chaos seal into the void. When the primal chaos seal hit the void, it immediately shattered the void and forced a woman in a colorful dress out. The woman was none other than Lan Yao Fairy, who had disappeared for many years. Xiao Lingyu had long known that Lan Yao Fairy might come for revenge. So, during the years of hard work and cultivation, his consciousness always covered a large area around the Hua men's treasure vault. That was why he flew out when the sacred artifact smashed down. Chapter 486. If Fairy Blue Jade didn't have a saint artifact, she wouldn't have dared to come find Xiao Lingyu again. Now that she had a saint artifact and had refined it for so many years, Fairy Blue Jade naturally wanted to try it out with Xiao Lingyu. Fairy Blue Jade knew that even with the help of a saint artifact, she couldn't defeat Xiao Lingyu. However, she still came because she didn't come to defeat Xiao Lingyu. She came to attack the Hua men's camp. It could be said that Fairy Blue Jade came with the intention of leaving with the stick in her hand. The staff had already struck, but it was a pity that it did not pose any threat to Hua men. Fairy Blue Jade stepped onto the golden cylindrical sacred artifact to escape. The golden cylindrical saint artifact was simply too fast. Moreover, Fairy Blue Jade had already made up her mind to only hit it once. Because of this, she decisively fled. Her decisiveness in fleeing was something that Xiao Lingyu hadn't expected. From Xiao Lingyu's point of view, Fairy Blue Jade hated him to the bone. If she didn't come, she wouldn't have come. If she came, she would have gone all out. Therefore, he wasn't prepared for Fairy Blue Jade's escape and couldn't make her stay. However, Xiao Lingyu was sure that Fairy Blue Jade would come again, so he wasn't in a hurry. He just had to wait patiently. Fairy Blue Jade was a famous sovereign-level expert in the immortal realm. She definitely wouldn't go to other places to attack the Hua men's disciples. If she wanted to attack, she would attack the Hua men's camp. However, after this failed sneak attack, Fairy Blue Jade wouldn't easily attack again. She would definitely choose a suitable time. When the time was right, it would be when Xiao Lingyu and the other sovereign's attention would be diverted. If it could divert Xiao Lingyu and the others' attention, it wouldn't be a small matter. However, there were very few things that could make Xiao Lingyu and the others treat it as a big matter. Soon, a major event occurred. Miao Ing, who had been in the late stage of the Paragon realm for many years, welcomed her deity tribulation. Miao Ing first severed her relationship with the demon sovereign, then wholeheartedly focused on Xiao Lingyu. After reaching the late stage of the monarch realm, she experienced many battles and tribulations, which was why she was able to welcome her own divine tribulation so quickly. Miao Ing was full of confidence as to whether she could successfully pass the tribulation, because she had been in the supreme realm for a long time. Whether it was her realm or her cultivation, she had already reached the great circle of supreme realm. Moreover, she had also refined a few top-grade defensive divine tools before. These top-grade defensive divine tools were actually prepared by Xiao Lingyu for the Hua men. If any of the Hua men's late-stage sovereigns were about to face their deity tribulation, they could refine these top-grade defensive divine tools to block the lightning of the deity tribulation. Although the deity tribulation was powerful, The lightning of the deity tribulation couldn't destroy high-grade defensive divine tools. Naturally, it couldn't destroy extreme-grade defensive divine tools. However, before the trip to the Tenchi's treasury, it was very difficult to find an extreme-grade defensive divine tool in the three realms. This was why Qing Pingzi, Qing Wei, and Qing Xian were so eager to fight over the Nanhua Bowl. Qing Xian had said that a high-grade defensive divine tool could increase a person's chances of passing the deity tribulation by 30%. An extreme-grade defensive divine tool could increase a person's chances of passing the deity tribulation to 70%. As long as there weren't too many accidents, passing the deity tribulation wouldn't be a problem. This was one of the important reasons why Miao Ying was so confident. Even if Miao Ying was 90% sure that she would pass the deity tribulation, Xiao Lingyu and the others would definitely focus their attention on her. Xiao Lingyu guessed that at that time, Blue Jade Fairy would most likely attack the Hua Min's base again. The deity tribulation couldn't be underestimated. Miao Ying naturally couldn't pass the deity tribulation near the Hua Min's base. She had to be like other cultivators and fly into space to find an uninhabited planet to pass the deity tribulation. When the time came, Xiao Lingyu and the others would definitely go and watch. Then, the Hua Min's base would inevitably be empty. When cultivators were about to go through their divine tribulation, there would often be rainbow-colored light in the sky. Any cultivator with a bit of common sense would know what this rainbow-colored light represented. Fairy Lan Yao was an expert of the Supreme Realm, so she was even more clear on this. Blue Jade Fairy definitely already knew that someone from the Hua Min was going to pass the deity tribulation. Everyone also knew that the Hua Min Supreme experts had a good relationship with Xiao Lingyu. Although Miao Ying was almost certain to pass the deity tribulation, Xiao Lingyu still had to watch over her because he was worried that others would cause trouble. However, the Hua Min was built by him. He couldn't just watch as the Hua Min were attacked by a divine tool. As a result, Xiao Lingyu was in a dilemma. Time waited for no one. Miao Ying's deity tribulation arrived as scheduled. Accompanied by everyone, she flew into the starry sky of the East Imperial Continent. The rainbow light followed closely above Miao Ying's head, making it impossible for everyone to slip away quietly. They could only leave openly. However, Xiao Lingyu didn't appear in the team. As for whether he went, it was unknown. Although he wasn't in the team, he could enter the space-type magic treasure and be taken away. Blue Jade Fairy knew that Xiao Lingyu had a divine abode. However, who could guarantee that Xiao Lingyu would go? As long as Xiao Lingyu was still in the Hua Min's camp, Blue Jade Fairy could sneak attack him, but she wouldn't be able to cause much damage. At this time, Blue Jade Fairy was also guessing whether Xiao Lingyu went to watch the deity tribulation. Blue Jade Fairy had to make a decision now. Should she follow the rainbow light and destroy the deity tribulation, or should she stay here and attack the Hua Min's camp? If she hesitated any longer, once Miao Ying and the others flew away, it would be difficult for her to find the deity tribulation in the starry sky. Although the deity tribulation was vast, the starry sky of the celestial world was even more vast. If she went to destroy the deity tribulation, she wouldn't be able to come back to attack the Hua Min's camp. After the deity tribulation ended, Xiao Lingyu and the others would definitely come back. If she stayed to attack the Hua Min's camp, she would lose the chance to destroy the deity tribulation. In fact, the key was how Xiao Lingyu would choose. However, Blue Jade Fairy didn't know how Xiao Lingyu would choose. Thus, she hesitated. She couldn't attack where Xiao Lingyu was. Otherwise, she wouldn't succeed. After thinking about it, Blue Jade Fairy decided to destroy the deity tribulation. If she succeeded, it would be a bigger blow to Xiao Lingyu than destroying the Hua Min's camp. After all, the person going through the deity tribulation was someone very important to Xiao Lingyu. Moreover, Blue Jade Fairy felt that since she had a divine artifact, it would affect the deity tribulation. Going through the deity tribulation was no small matter. If there was even the slightest impact or accident, it was very likely that the deity tribulation would fail. Blue Jade Fairy felt that it was better to destroy the deity tribulation. Xiaoling Yu expected Blue Jade Fairy to make this choice because he knew that Blue Jade Fairy hated him a lot. As such, he hid in the god's residence and followed everyone. He only left the foodie at the Huan men's camp. After flying through the starry sky and turning around a few times, Miao Ying and the others finally stopped on a nameless planet. There was no life on this planet. The nearby planets were also lifeless. Because the seven-colored light was too obvious, Fairy Lanya didn't need to follow too closely or lose track of it. When Miao Ying and the others stopped, she also stopped. She looked from afar. Where she was, it was impossible for any paragon's divine sense to cover her. After waiting for less than 10 days on this nameless planet, the rainbow light above Miao Ying's head suddenly became even more dazzling. Then, dark clouds gathered in the sky. Those dark clouds appeared out of nowhere. They gathered together and crazily spun. Soon, they formed a dark cloud vortex that covered hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The mighty might of the heavens pressed down from the sky. The planet constantly trembled, and the space around it began to fluctuate. In the center of the dark cloud vortex, lightning constantly flashed. There were also bursts of thunder roaring. Strong winds blew in all directions, and huge rocks were swept up into the air before turning into dust in an instant. The divine tribulation had not yet begun, but the heaven's might was already terrifying. Qing Xian, Anya, Ling Zhong Ji, and many other Huamen experts were guarding outside the range of the divine tribulation to prevent outsiders from causing trouble. Xiaoling Yu still hadn't revealed herself. After brewing for nearly half a month, a golden bolt of tribulation lightning struck down. Miaoing didn't set up any restrictions or arrays. Instead, she took out the golden bowl-shaped top-quality defensive divine artifact and blocked above her head. The golden tribulation lightning seemed incomparably fierce, but when it struck the golden bowl, it only made the golden bowl tremble slightly. It couldn't even make the golden bowl sink by a few centimeters. Anya and the other Huamen experts were in charge of guarding Miao Ying and had full confidence in her success. Their attention should have been on the nearby space, guarding against someone suddenly appearing to cause trouble. However, they couldn't help but feel nervous for Miao Ying. Their attention gradually shifted to the scene of the divine tribulation. The divine tribulation was indeed not to be underestimated. After the first golden tribulation lightning from the dark cloud vortex, there were 81 golden tribulation lightning bolts that continuously struck down. This gave people a feeling of indiscriminate bombardment. If it was an ordinary late-stage Paragon expert undergoing the divine tribulation, they would feel very uncomfortable as soon as the divine tribulation began. However, this time it was Miao Ying's divine tribulation. With a top-quality defensive divine artifact, she only needed to wait patiently under the golden bowl. She didn't need to use any strength at all. The 81 golden tribulation lightning struck down, but it only made the golden bowl sink by 3 feet. This was what everyone expected before. After the golden tribulation lightning, the tribulation clouds gathered power again. Everyone's mood calmed down a bit. Fairy Lan Yao naturally wouldn't make a move in this situation. She had to wait until danger appeared. At that time, if Xiaoling Yu was here, she wouldn't be able to hide peacefully. Moreover, at that time, everyone's attention would be focused on the person undergoing the divine tribulation. After waiting for about half a year, the tribulation clouds finally gathered enough power and a purple-gold tribulation lightning struck down. This wave of purplish-gold tribulation lightning was also ferocious. A total of 72 bolts of lightning struck down, but they were only able to push the golden bowl down by a few feet. Chapter 487. 63 3-color tribulation lightning bolts. 69 54 5-color tribulation lightning bolts. 65 7-color tribulation lightning bolts. The next 3 waves of tribulation lightning were unable to break through the defense of the supreme grade divine artifact golden bowl. Miaoing was still calm. However, the power of the seven-color tribulation lightning was enough to threaten a high-grade, defensive divine artifact. If Miao Ying didn't have a supreme-grade defensive divine artifact, she would be in danger when facing the following tribulation lightning. Fairy Lawn, Yao still didn't make a move. She was patiently waiting for the right time to appear. Xiao Yu naturally didn't appear. He could clearly see the scene of the tribulation from his divine abode. The tribulation cloud brewed for nearly 10 years before 36 nine-color tribulation lightning bolts fell. Miao Ying took out 2 more supreme-grade defensive divine artifacts. With the protection of the 3 supreme-grade defensive divine artifacts, this wave of 9-color tribulation lightning didn't harm her at all. Many people who didn't have a high-grade defensive divine artifact would be annihilated by this wave of 9-color tribulation lightning. This was because although the power of the 9-color tribulation lightning wasn't enough to destroy a high-grade defensive divine artifact, there were 36 of them. Even with a high-grade defensive divine artifact, if one didn't have a strong cultivation base, it would be very difficult to block them. However, Xiao Yu discovered that whether it was the 5-colored or 7-colored tribulation lightning or the 9-color tribulation lightning, their powers seemed to be much weaker than the real 5-colored or 7-colored tribulation lightning. Although there was a lot of rainbow-colored tribulation lightning, it only looked scary. If it was the 9-color tribulation lightning that fell, and not the tribulation lightning, Miao Ying's 3 supreme-grade defensive divine artifacts would have a hard time blocking it. However, the tribulation was a test, not an extermination. If the 9-color tribulation lightning really fell, it would be almost impossible for a late-stage soul exalt to successfully pass the tribulation. This was because the 9-color tribulation lightning wasn't the end of the tribulation. The tribulation cloud was still brewing. Xiao Yu couldn't help but worry for himself. An ordinary tribulation was already so powerful. How powerful would a chaotic tribulation be if it was 3 times stronger than an ordinary tribulation be? Everyone thought that there would be 27 bolts of tribulation lightning. However, after the tribulation clouds had been brewing for nearly 20 years, only 1 black bolt of tribulation lightning fell. When the black tribulation lightning fell, it clearly carried a terrifying aura of death and destruction. What was even more surprising was that the black lightning tribulation actually ignored the defense of the 3 best-grade defensive artifacts and directly landed on Miao Ying. However, Miao Ying was not blasted to the ground. Instead, her entire body was shining with red demonic light and black death light. From the looks of it, this black tribulation lightning wasn't a physical attack. The experience left behind by the predecessors told everyone that this was a test of a cultivator's body. The black tribulation lightning contained a special energy that could corrode a cultivator's body and destroy their life force. If a cultivator's body wasn't strong enough or didn't reach the standard of becoming a god, they would be destroyed by this black tribulation lightning. This black tribulation lightning was the second to last tribulation lightning for Devil Dao cultivators. As for immortal Dao cultivators, they would face a white tribulation lightning. Only by enduring this tribulation lightning would they have a chance to face the last tribulation lightning. The last tribulation lightning tested a cultivator's soul realm. However, the majority of cultivators who failed the tribulation died to the black or white tribulation lightning. This was because very few people could survive the 36 bolts of tribulation lightning. However, even if a cultivator was lucky enough to survive the tribulation lightning, they would be heavily injured. If they couldn't recover in 20 years, their bodies wouldn't be able to withstand the corrosion of the black or white tribulation lightning. In the end, they would die. Generally speaking, cultivators who could survive the black or white tribulation lightning wouldn't have a weak soul realm. The last tribulation lightning wouldn't be too difficult for them. This meant that the black tribulation lightning was the most dangerous stage of Miao Ying's tribulation. Even so, Xiao Yu didn't immediately come out because he knew that Miao Ying would definitely be able to survive this stage. He still hasn't appeared at this time. I guess he really isn't here. I can't wait any longer. Fairy Lan Yao finally couldn't wait any longer. She first hid her body and approached the tribulation. At the edge of the tribulation clouds, she waved her hand and sent out a golden light. The golden light continued to expand in the face of the gale, and in a flash, it turned into a hollow golden pillar, flying towards Miao Ying at an extremely fast speed. Firstly, Fairy Lan Yao's cultivation realm wasn't low. If she wanted to hide, Qing Xian, Anya, and Ling wouldn't be able to find her. Secondly, everyone who was on guard was worried about Miao Ying. Their attention was focused on Miao Ying, so they didn't notice Fairy Lan Yao in time. It wasn't until they saw the golden light that their expressions changed and they exclaimed. Xiao Yu naturally expected Fairy Lan Yao to make a move at this time. Therefore, the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron whistled out and smashed into the golden light. After a few flashes, Xiao Yu arrived not far from Fairy Blue Jade. He was able to determine Fairy Blue Jade's location based on where the golden rainbow had appeared. As Xiao Yu flew over, he used the primal chaos eel to bombard the space in front of him, forcing Fairy Lan Yao to reveal herself. At this moment, before the golden streak of light could even reach Miao Ying, it had already been struck by the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. The collision of the two sane artifacts caused a powerful shockwave of aura to erupt. Naturally, the shockwave would also sweep towards Miao Ying, and it would affect her quite a bit. The golden light was knocked away and naturally couldn't hit Miao Ying. However, the shockwave quickly arrived before Miao Ying. If nothing unexpected happened, Miao Ying's body would be severely injured by the shockwave. Then, she would be unable to resist the corrosion of the black tribulation lightning and die. This was why Fairy Lan Yao had decided to make a move despite knowing that Xiao Yu might be there. She felt that even if her saint artifact couldn't hit Miao Ying, it could still make her fail the tribulation. However, at this moment, Miao Ying's blood-red flute appeared above her head and suddenly exploded. It turned into a blood-red mist that enveloped her. The shockwave was extremely ferocious, pushing Miao Ying's body and the blood mist far away. However, the blood mist managed to deflect 90% of the shockwave, reducing the impact of the shockwave to a negligible level. It was because he knew that Miao Ying had such a life-saving move that Xiao Yu was so relieved. After he sent out the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, he didn't look at the tribulation anymore. Instead, he didn't give Miao Ying a chance to escape with the Saint artifact. He locked onto Miao Ying with his divine sense and enveloped Fairy Lan Yao with his chaotic domain. Fairy Blue Jade was a bit flustered at that moment. She thought that since she had attacked Miao Ying with a Saint artifact, even if Xiao Yu was present, he would do his best to protect Miao Ying. He wouldn't have the time to find trouble with her. She didn't think that Xiao Yu would be so determined to rush towards her. Xiao Yu's chaotic domain was naturally much stronger than the domains of ordinary immortal sovereigns. Under the cover of the chaotic domain, Fairy Lan Yao's domain was useless. Her strength was greatly reduced. Even without using her domain, Fairy Lan Yao was far from being a match for Xiao Yu. Now that she was restricted by his domain, she was bound to lose. Most importantly, once she was restricted by someone else's domain, she wouldn't be able to use her soul force to form her divine sense. As a result, Fairy Lan Yao wouldn't be able to form a connection with her Saint artifact. In other words, Fairy Lan Yao had completely lost the ability to fight against Xiao Yu. Fairy Lan Yao was thinking of a countermeasure, but Xiao Yu took out another Saint artifact, the Mirror of Yin Yang. For more phantoms appeared outside the chaotic domain, and a very powerful four symbols domain appeared. Fairy Lan Yao was basically on the verge of death. Xiao Yu didn't have time to talk nonsense with Fairy Lan Yao. After sealing her, he summoned the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron and sucked Fairy Lan Yao into the cauldron. The golden rainbow turned back into a golden cylinder. After Xiao Yu flew over, he grasped it tightly in his hand. After dealing with another big problem, Xiao Yu's expression became a lot more relaxed. Although this was a bit risky, Everything was within his calculations. It was scary but not dangerous. In truth, Fairy Lan Yao didn't understand. She wanted to use a saint artifact to threaten Xiao Yu. She was a bit too confident in the saint artifact. The saint artifact was powerful, but Fairy Lan Yao was only at the supreme level. She was the lowest level of deities. She was the same as Xiao Yu. She couldn't display the full power of the saint artifact. However, Xiao Yu could understand Fairy Lan Yao's state of mind. He had caused havoc in the Heaven's Incense School before and had even destroyed it. He had even forced the Heaven's Incense School's disciples to marry someone else. This was like slapping Fairy Lan Yao in the face. How could a Supreme who had been proud for countless years swallow this humiliation? Even if it was Xiao Yu, he would definitely deal with the enemy to the end. However, Xiao Yu wouldn't be as reckless as Fairy Lan Yao. The blood-red mist around Miao Ying had already dissipated. However, the color of the blood-red flute seemed to have become a lot lighter. The blood-red mist that had been released after the explosion had probably affected the quality of the magic treasure. The black tribulation lightning continued to corrode Miao Ying's body for nearly 3 days. However, Miao Ying was able to endure it in the end. She refined the special energy of the black tribulation lightning into her body, making her body even more resilient. After passing this test, Miao Ying put away all the magic treasures. She then sat cross-legged in the void and meditated. She waited for the last tribulation lightning and digested the benefits she had just received. Everyone outside was secretly relieved. Due to the sudden change, they all turned their attention to the surrounding void. They didn't want anyone to disturb them. After waiting for nearly 50 years, the last gray tribulation lightning fell from the sky. It ignored everything and directly affected Miao Ying's body. Chapter 488. The only thing that could shake Miao Ying's state of mind was her emotional entanglement with the Demon Lord. However, Miao Ying had already gotten over this. The many scenes that appeared before her eyes could only make her forget them after recalling them once. This was because she clearly realized how foolish she had been at that time. Of course, other than those foolish thoughts, Miao Ying also felt guilty towards her sister and father. These two people had died because of her, and this was a knot in her heart that she could not untie. The more she cared about this, the more those scenes appeared, and she gradually lost her mind. She seemed to see her father's scolding and disappointment, and her sister's rebuke and hatred. Just as her consciousness was gradually sinking into oblivion, the blood-colored flute flew out from her dantian. Then, without anyone playing it, it strangely played a clear and melodious tune. The song was like a morning bell ringing in the depths of Miao Ying's soul, pulling her back from the edge of falling into oblivion. The song accompanied the trial of the divine tribulation, keeping Miao Ying awake. However, the color of the blood-red flute became fainter and fainter until it became transparent, and then it shattered. Miao Ying had successfully passed the trial of the divine tribulation. When the tribulation clouds dissipated, a ray of light flew from the 9 heavens and sank into her body. Under the effect of the light, her cultivation continued to increase, her soul realm also increased, and the quality of her divine power also evolved. Just like in the cultivation world, after passing the divine tribulation, one would not directly ascend to the higher realms, but it would not take long. Under normal circumstances, after passing the divine tribulation, one could only stay in the celestial realm for a few thousand years. Although she had passed the divine tribulation, Miao Ying was not very happy because ascending meant that she would be separated from everyone. Even if they could meet again in the future, it would be a long time. Miao Ying successfully passing the divine tribulation was a big event for the Huamen. The Huamen celebrated this and spread the good news throughout the celestial realm. In fact, this was also to show the strength of the Huamen. In a secret room of the Huamen, Xiao Yu and the others, as well as many Earth descendant experts, were discussing how to deal with Fairy Lan Yao. Most people suggested killing her, but there were a few people like Xiao Yu who thought it would be a pity to kill her. After all, Fairy Blue Jade was a supreme. If he could convince Fairy Lan Yao to work for the Hua Gate and swear loyalty to it, that would be the best choice. However, when Xiaoling Yu released Blue Jade Fairy was very stubborn. She would rather die than swear loyalty to the Hua men. This caused everyone's opinion to be unified, and that was to kill Fairy Blue Jade. Although Xiaoling Yu still felt that it was a pity, she could only agree with everyone's suggestion. However, when Xiaoling Yu inadvertently glanced at his spirit beast pouch, he thought of another idea. This spirit beast pouch had always been with Xiaoling Yu, but he only glanced at it occasionally. In this spirit beast pouch, there was a demon fox with 6 tails. It originally had the cultivation of a late-stage demon lord, but now it was only at the early-stage demon lord. This little demon fox had never cultivated. It had always curled up in a corner, looking lonely and pitiful. Xiaoling Yu would occasionally send some food that demon beasts liked to eat into the pouch, but the 6-tailed demon fox rarely touched those things. It probably still hadn't walked out of the shadow of losing its mother. When Xiaoling Yu killed the 9-tailed magic fox, he didn't regret it at all. However, he did feel some pity and guilt for the little magic fox. He had promised the 9-tailed demon fox that he would help it take care of its child. He had never given up, but the little demon fox did not cooperate with him. This became a burden on Xiaoling Yu's mind. Although it was not very important, Xiaoling Yu felt that before he ascended to the God Realm, he had to fulfill his promise. Xiaoling Yu could still vaguely remember when the 9-tailed demon fox had entrusted the little demon fox to him. Its eyes were filled with tears, and it was very reluctant to part with it. Xiaoling Yu invited the little demon fox out of the spirit beast pouch and held it in his arms. The cute and pitiful little demon fox naturally made Anya and the others dote on it. They all wanted to hold it in their arms and protect it. Xiaoling Yu did not let the 3 girls do as they wished. Instead, he extracted most of the demon fox's essence, blood, and soul and sent it into the imprisoned Blue Jade Fairy's body. Not long after, a demon fetus appeared in Blue Jade Fairy's dantian. That's right, it was a demon fetus. Xiaoling Yu wanted to help the little demon fox plant a demon fetus in a sovereign-level expert. He wanted to use that sovereign-level expert's many years of cultivation to obtain the results. Originally, with the little demon fox's level, it was impossible for it to do this. Moreover, its demon fetus could be easily destroyed by a sovereign-level expert. However, with Xiaoling Yu's help, most of the Blue Jade Fairy's life, essence, and soul were transferred into the demon fetus. Blue Jade Fairy could not resist at all. She could only accept it. After that, Xiaoling Yu used many high-tier pills and materials to help the weak little demon fox recover. The demon fetus had just been planted. Naturally, it could not be taken back immediately. Xiaoling Yu was not in a hurry, and the little demon fox did not feel anything. "You are so good to this little guy," Anya said with a hint of envy. "Right. Has it recognized a master?" Qing Xian asked. "No. Miao Ying's realm was high. Naturally, she could see the truth at a glance." "Then hurry up and let recognize a master. That way, we will have another loyal sovereign-level expert," Qing Xian reminded. The 3 women and everyone else looked at Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu smiled and shook his head. "After I help it finish cultivating, I will let it go." Everyone was very surprised and confused. However, no one asked any more questions. They knew that Xiaoling Yu must have his reasons for doing this. After that, they continued to live a peaceful life. They cultivated while waiting for their respective deity tribulations. Since Miao Ying was about to ascend, Xiaoling Yu naturally had to accompany her while she was in the immortal realm. Anya and Qing Xian did not have any objections to this. After passing the deity tribulation, Miao Ying seemed to be more open than before. Almost every day, she would cling to Xiaoling Yu. She would linger with him, experience extreme pleasure with him, and give him her gentleness. However, a few thousand years was too short for everyone. Miao Ying finally ushered in the guiding light. Under the gaze of countless Hua men cultivators and cultivators from other sects who came to watch the ceremony, Miao Ying faced the sky and was slowly brought into a black hole by a circle of guiding light. The reason why she faced the sky was that Miao Ying did not want everyone to see the tears at the corner of her eyes. She did not want everyone to see her face full of reluctance and attachment. After Miao Ying ascended to the immortal realm, Xiao Lingyu's mood was inevitably low for a while. However, it gradually improved. After all, he was already mentally prepared for this. The next person to ascend to the immortal realm would definitely be Xiao Lingyu. He also had to prepare for his own chaotic deity tribulation. After all, he had already reached the late chaotic divine transformation stage. However, Xiao Lingyu had just reached the late chaotic divine transformation stage. In fact, there was still a long time before the arrival of the deity tribulation. The only thing he could do to prepare for the chaotic deity tribulation was to refine the golden cylindrical sacred artifact that he had just obtained. With 3 sacred artifacts, he felt that even if the chaotic deity tribulation was 3 times stronger than an ordinary deity tribulation, he could still withstand it. In addition to refining the sacred artifact, he also had to work hard to improve his understanding of the chaotic deity tribulation. This was because this test would appear during the chaotic deity tribulation. If he did not understand it well enough, it was very likely that everything he had worked hard to obtain would be for naught. Of course, he could also do something with the brilliant white flame hidden in the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron. However, the white flame could even suppress a sacred artifact. Xiao Lingyu felt that with his current realm and the current level of the 3 realms, it was impossible for him to refine the brilliant white flame. He could only borrow the power of the sacred artifact to seal it for a long time. Even with the help of a powerful primordial fire, like the chaotic primordial fire, Xiao Lingyu took a total of 30,000 years to refine the golden cylinder. However, he could only unleash a portion of its power. After refining the golden cylinder, Xiao Lingyu brought his sworn brother, Gu Yunfei, to the demon realm. With the help of the Devourer of Heaven, he naturally found Hualan very quickly. He reunited his sworn brother's family and saved Gu Yunfei a lot of trouble. After accompanying the Devourer of Heaven on the Divine Dragon Continent for a period of time, Xiao Lingyu returned to the East Imperial Continent with Gu Yunfei and his family in the immortal realm. With this golden cylinder sacred artifact, it was equivalent to having the ability to walk freely in the 3 realms. Moreover, it would not be restricted by the spatial barrier. Xiao Lingyu didn't know whether or not this golden cylinder could create a space passage to the divine realm. However, even if this divine tool could do so, Xiao Lingyu reckoned that he wouldn't be able to display such formidable might. Therefore, this shortcut was unrealistic. Although Xiao Lingyu had intentionally suppressed the speed of his own power, he still felt that his chaotic divine tribulation was about to arrive 3 million years after Miao Ying ascended. Without waiting any longer, Xiao Lingyu helped Little Magic Fox complete the Devil Fetus secret technique. He took the Devil Fetus out of Lan Yao's Dantian and transferred it into Little Magic Fox's body. Little Magic Fox did not accept it, but it did not reject it either. Under Xiao Lingyu's strong control, the Devil Fetus merged into Little Magic Fox's nascent soul. To everyone's surprise, Little Magic Fox's body quickly grew. Then, it grew 3 tails and became a 9-tailed Magic Fox. Little Magic Fox's flesh and soul continued to grow. Its aura became stronger and stronger. Lan Yao's lifetime of cultivation was helping Little Magic Fox. What was even more shocking was that Little Magic Fox actually grew an extra tail towards the end, turning her from 9 to 10 tails. 9-tailed Magic Foxes could be considered divine beasts, but 9-tailed Magic Foxes were mutated divine beasts. Normally, mutated divine beasts were not weaker than super divine beasts of the same age. However, everyone was a little confused as to what grade a fox demon with 10 tails was. After reading many ancient books, Xiao Lingyu and the others were shocked to discover that a fox demon with 10 tails was a heavenly fox. It was called a 10-tailed heavenly fox. Chapter 489. After reading through the ancient books, Xiao Yu and the others found out that the heavenly fox was a type of heaven demon. It was basically the most powerful type of demonic beast that had been discovered. Whether it was in terms of grade or bloodline, it had reached the highest level. Of course, this had already been discovered. As for whether there was an existence higher than the heaven demon, no one knew. Therefore, they could not be sure that there was no such existence. The formation of a heaven demon required the original bloodline to have some special characteristics. Ordinary demonic beasts could not evolve to the level of a heaven demon, no matter how great the opportunity was. Heavenly demons were often proud and stubborn. They would not easily submit to anyone. Moreover, as long as they were unwilling, no cultivator could force them to recognize a master. They would only recognize one master in their lifetime. If their master died, then they would forever be alone because they would not look for a partner. Cultivators who could be recognized as masters by heaven demons were usually not ordinary people. This 10-tailed heavenly fox had achieved its current level of cultivation with Xiao Yu's help. However, it did not recognize Xiao Yu as its master. It seemed to know that Xiao Yu had killed its mother. However, it did not attack Xiao Yu. It was just that the awakening of the heaven demon bloodline made it not as depressed as before. The 10-tailed heavenly fox did not stay on the East Imperial continent for long. After its cultivation stabilized, it left the East Imperial continent. No one knew where it was going. It was already at the honorable realm and was also a heavenly demon. In this immortal realm, aside from Xiao Yu and a few others, there was naturally no one who could do anything to it. Therefore, Xiao Yu did not have to worry about its safety. Furthermore, Xiao Yu had already made up his mind. After fulfilling his promise to the 9-tailed magic fox, he would no longer ask about the little magic fox's matters. He would consider the grudge between them as written off. Although the 10-tailed heavenly fox was very powerful, it did not want to be with him. Xiao Yu naturally would not ask it to stay. After all, he was the one who killed its mother. As for whether the 10-tailed heavenly fox would seek revenge one day when it became stronger, Xiao Yu did not have the mood to think about it. The most important thing now was to survive the chaos divine tribulation. If he failed to survive the primal chaos divinity tribulation, everything he had would return to zero, including all his grudges. If he succeeded in passing the tribulation, he would ascend to the divine realm very quickly. When the 10-tailed heavenly fox came to the divine realm to seek revenge, it would have to find him first. After the 10-tailed celestial fox flew out of the Huang Min's encampment, it did not head straight to the teleportation portal in the East Imperial Kingdom. Instead, it found a secluded place and transformed into its human form. It was a woman in a white woolen robe. However, that woman had a peerless appearance, but there was a trace of melancholy that couldn't be removed between her brows, as if there was a knot in her heart that couldn't be untied. The 10-tailed fox's true form was too frightening. If she wanted to roam the world of immortals, she naturally had to take human form. After familiarizing herself with her current appearance and tidying up her clothes, she flew toward the teleportation array. Before she left, Xiao Yu had given her many jade slips that would help her familiarize herself with the immortal world. Since they were both about to pass the tribulation, Xiao Yu would naturally attract the light. However, the light that he attracted wasn't rainbow-colored. Instead, it was black and white. This kind of black and white light confused many people. Apart from those who were closer to Xiao Yu, no one knew that it was attracted by Xiao Yu. Naturally, not many people knew that the Lord of the Huang Min was about to pass the tribulation. In the 3 million years after Miao Ying's ascension, Xiao Yu had been working hard to understand the essence of chaos. It could be said that he had gained a lot. However, even so, it was still uncertain whether he could successfully pass the chaos divine tribulation. After arranging the various matters again, Xiao Yu brought Fudi, Qing Xian, Anya, and Ling Er, and flew into the starry sky. The black and white light also flew into the starry sky and disappeared from the eyes of the East Imperial Continent's cultivators. After flying into the depths of the starry sky, Xiao Lingyu randomly chose a planet to meditate on while Fudi, Qing Xian, Anya, and Linger each guarded one side. After waiting quietly for a few months, the black and white light gathered a huge tribulation cloud. More and more tribulation clouds gathered and finally covered a large area of the starry sky. The entire area covered was 3 times the size of an ordinary tribulation cloud. A circle of yin-yang taiji gradually appeared in the middle of the tribulation cloud vortex. Streaks of dazzling lightning flashed. The thunder exploded, and the heavens were mighty. The chaos divine tribulation was brewing. Soon, 9 3-colored tribulation lightning bolts struck one after another. Xiao Lingyu didn't use any Dharma treasures and didn't put up any defense. He just let the 3-color tribulation lightning strike him. The 9 3-color tribulation lightning bolts didn't hurt him at all. They couldn't even make his body shake. Then, there were 8 5-color tribulation lightning bolts, 7 7-colored tribulation lightning bolts, and 6 9-color tribulation lightning bolts. Xiao Lingyu took them all easily. After all, the strongest 9-color tribulation lightning was only at the level of a superior grade divine artifact. Even if Xiao Lingyu's body couldn't take it, he just needed to take out a supreme grade divine artifact to block it. The first 4 tribulation lightning bolts didn't cause any trouble for Xiao Lingyu. However, Xiao Lingyu's face was very serious. This was just the beginning. The tribulation cloud was still increasing its power. The mighty heavens made people's hearts tremble. Xiao Lingyu knew that the true power of the chaos divine tribulation was about to be revealed. Thus, the 3 saint artifacts were already floating above his head. These 3 saint artifacts weren't really defensive Dharma treasures. However, their defensive power was far beyond supreme grade defensive divine artifacts. Boom! A black tribulation lightning struck. However, it was different from the black tribulation lightning that Miao Ying had taken on previously. It obviously had a stronger physical attack. Moreover, there wasn't just one black tribulation lightning. There were 5 of them. The 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron went up and blocked the first black tribulation lightning. However, it was blown away by the second. The yin-yang mirror flew up and blocked the 3rd and 4th black tribulation lightning bolts. As for the 5th tribulation lightning, it was easily blocked by the golden cylinder. The 3 saint artifacts were not damaged at all after taking on the 5 bolts of black tribulation lightning. It was only because Xiao Lingyu's current level of cultivation was not high enough that he was unable to make them display too much power. They used their bodies to defend, so it was reasonable for them to be blown away by the violent tribulation lightning. However, the tribulation lightning was definitely unable to harm them. After the black tribulation lightning, the tribulation cloud continued to gather power. The attack level of the black tribulation lightning was no less than that of a supreme grade offensive divine artifact. Xiao Lingyu could have blocked it if he continued to use his supreme grade defensive divine artifact. However, Xiao Lingyu was thinking about something. If he didn't have a saint artifact or a supreme grade divine artifact, wouldn't he most likely die when he encountered the black tribulation lightning? Even if he didn't die, he would probably be seriously injured. Even if he was lucky enough to survive, how would he face the more powerful tribulation lightning that followed? It was no wonder that Xiao Lingyu's master had said that cultivating the 9-revolution chaos formula was an extremely dangerous path of cultivation. Not to mention that every breakthrough in the 9-revolution chaos formula was a life and death trial. Just these heavenly tribulations were not easy to deal with. Xiao Lingyu waited for nearly 3 years before the chaos divine tribulation finally showed its power again. 4 black and white tribulation lightning bolts struck one after another. The attack power of the yin-yang tribulation lightning was much more powerful than that of a supreme grade offensive divine artifact. The aura that they released was so destructive that Xiao Yu felt oppressed and suffocated. The three saint artifacts went up at the same time and blocked one of the yin-yang tribulation lightning bolts each. However, after the three saint artifacts, Xiao Yu also used his supreme-grade defensive divine artifacts at the same time to meet the last yin-yang tribulation lightning bolt. The black and white lightning should have reached the peak of supreme-grade offensive divine artifacts, but it was not at the level of a divine artifact. Xiao Yu used 5 supreme-grade defensive divine artifacts at once, so he was naturally able to block it. However, even after the 5 supreme-grade defensive divine artifacts were blown away, the power of the final yin-yang tribulation lightning was still there. It struck Xiao Yu. In an instant, the supreme-grade defensive divine armor that Xiao Yu was wearing was shattered, but also weakened the power of the yin-yang tribulation lightning. The power of the yin-yang tribulation lightning that struck Xiao Yu was less than 10% of its original power, but it still struck him down from the sky. His physical body almost collapsed on the spot. However, the power of the yin-yang tribulation lightning still surged into his dantian and sea of consciousness. It seemed like it was going to destroy his nascent soul and soul. The power of the tribulation lightning that surged into his sea of consciousness was quickly absorbed by the grayish-black metal piece, and the power of the tribulation lightning that invaded his dantian was blocked by a circle of extremely strong chaotic light barrier, so it did not pose a threat to Xiao Yu's chaotic, demonic nascent soul. Fortunately, Xiao Yu's bloodline was very strong and could help him stabilize his body and neutralize the power of the tribulation lightning. Otherwise, even if his sea of consciousness and dantian were unharmed, Xiao Yu's body would probably explode. How can it be so abnormal? Xiao Yu suddenly felt that the chaotic divine tribulation was not a test at all, but a real extermination. Back in the cultivation world, Xiao Yu had this feeling, but it was more obvious this time. If it weren't for the fact that he was lucky enough to possess 3 saint artifacts and many supreme-grade defensive divine artifacts, he would have died under the bombardment of the 4 bolts of yin-yang tribulation lightning. No matter how hard he cultivated in the chaotic soul formation stage, it would have been useless. Relying on his cultivation realm and skills at the peak of the late-stage chaotic divine transformation stage and 1 or 2 supreme-grade divine weapons, there was no hope for him to survive this abnormal chaotic divine tribulation. It seemed that in order to cultivate the 9 revolutions chaos formula and achieve a high level of achievement, the first condition was not how high one's aptitude was, nor was it how hard one cultivated, but the most important thing was opportunity. Without enough luck, cultivating the 9 revolutions chaos formula was a dead end. No wonder Xiao Yu's aptitude was not good, and he had long passed the best age to cultivate, but his master still passed on the 9 revolutions chaos formula to him. First, he probably thought that he was lucky, and second, it was because no matter who cultivated it, it would be the same no matter who cultivated it. The key was that it could be passed on. Chapter 490. To Xiao Yu, the previous lightning tribulations were not considered very powerful because he had a divine weapon and a supreme defensive divine weapon. It was also because he knew that he had more powerful defensive techniques that he did not hide in the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron and did not cheat to take on the chaotic divine tribulation. In fact, he was cheating by using the 3 divine weapons. However, if he did not cheat, only death would await him. He could cheat in the previous lightning tribulations, but he could not cheat in the last one. This was because if he did not accept the last lightning tribulations test of his state of mind and his comprehension of the chaos maxim, even if the last lightning tribulations did not do anything to him, he would not be able to pass the tribulations successfully. The tribulations would also not descend to help him improve. Not only would he not obtain the opportunity to ascend to the divine realm, but he would also attract another round of chaotic divine tribulation. The physical attack of the last lightning tribulations could be withstood with the help of a magic treasure. However, Xiaolingyu had to face the two non-physical tests by himself. According to the experience left behind by his master, the last lightning tribulations would only strike after 10 years. Xiaolingyu could use this short period of time to recover from his injuries. To Xiaolingyu, the best way to recover from his injuries was to transform his body and use the healing elixir. He had no other choice. However, after drinking the medicinal soup that he had prepared beforehand, he suddenly remembered that he still had 3 bottles of blood essence from the super divine beasts. Although these 3 bottles of blood essence could not transform his body to the level of a middle-grade divine weapon, they could be integrated into his bloodline and make it more special and powerful. After the bloodline became stronger, it would also increase the toughness of his body and his ability to withstand attacks. Xiaolingyu still vaguely remembered that he had once read an ancient record in an ancient book. It said that if the blood essence of the 5-clawed golden dragon, Qilin, and Phoenix, these 3 super divine beasts were gathered together, it would have a very shocking effect. However, at that time, that ancient book was incomplete and the record that Xiaolingyu read was not complete. He also did not know what effect these 3 types of blood essence would have when gathered together. It was also because of this vague memory in his mind that Xiaolingyu had proposed that condition to the demon race. After obtaining the 3 blood essences, Xiaolingyu had taken out some of them separately and mixed them together. However, he did not discover anything. Even if he used the primordial fire to refine them, it was still the same. At the moment, he didn't have anything else to improve himself. Perhaps it would be a good idea to use these 3 bottles of super divine beast blood essence. In any case, his bloodline was already very unique and very heterogeneous. It wouldn't be a big deal to have a few more bloodlines. Xiaolingyu already possessed the bloodline of the 5-clawed golden dragon among the 3 super divine beasts, so the focus should be on the Qilin bloodline and the Phoenix bloodline. These 3 bottles of blood essence were not ordinary blood, but the blood essence of the 3 super divine beasts. Not only did it contain the bloodline of the 3 super divine beasts, it also contained their life essence, especially the blood essence of the 5-clawed golden dragon, which came from the venerable level dragon emperor. The energy within it was definitely more vigorous and dense. Xiaolingyu's injuries were not very serious, and he had also obtained many high-quality healing pills from the Tenchi's treasury, so he only needed 3 years to fully recover. After putting away the jade bathtub, Xiaolingyu took out the 3 bottles of blood essence. He had already thought about it very clearly when he was treating his injuries, so he did not hesitate anymore. He immediately stretched out his large hand towards one of the jade bottles. A suction force was released from the center of his palm, and the blood essence in the jade bottle gushed out and drilled into his palm. It then spread through the veins in his arm and spread to all parts of his body. Xiaolingyu already had the bloodline of the 5-clawed golden dragon and the yellow emperor, so it was not difficult for him to suppress the phoenix blood essence that had invaded his body. The primal chaos primordial fire burned at full force, helping the 2 bloodlines to absorb and fuse with the phoenix blood essence. After spending nearly 4 years, Xiaolingyu really managed to fuse the phoenix blood essence into his own bloodline. At the same time, Xiaolingyu's flesh and bones also underwent a series of tearing and regenerating, which was equivalent to changing his entire body. However, he had experience with this, so he was not surprised. Furthermore, he controlled the entire process very well. As there was the phoenix blood essence in his bloodline, it was much easier for Xiaolingyu to absorb and fuse with the Qilin blood essence. It only took him 2 years to successfully complete it. At this time, Xiaolingyu already had the 5-clawed golden dragon, the Qilin, and the phoenix blood essence. Of course, he also had the yellow emperor's blood essence. What Xiaolingyu didn't expect was that when the Qilin's bloodline completely fused with his own bloodline, the 3 noble bloodlines of the super mythological beasts actually began to fight each other fiercely after a short period of peace and harmony. There was indeed a situation when the 3 bloodlines met. However, This situation did not come at the right time for Xiao Yu, who was about to face the final tribulation lightning. The battle between the three bloodlines became more and more intense, and Xiao Yu was unable to suppress it at all. After all, this was a conflict within his own bloodline. He could not think of any way to solve this problem, and his predecessors naturally did not leave any experience for him. At the beginning, Xiao Yu was still able to bear it, but gradually he began to cough up blood, and the life essence in his body began to slowly drain away. If the final tribulation lightning struck at this time, Xiao Yu would undoubtedly die. However, there was only a year until the final tribulation lightning struck. Within a year, if Xiao Yu could not solve this problem, he would also undoubtedly die. Furthermore, he might not even need the final tribulation lightning to destroy him, and he himself would die from the chaos of his bloodline. If the high-grade bloodlines could perfectly fuse together, naturally the more the better. However, if they could not perfectly fuse together and live in harmony, then having multiple high-grade bloodlines would not be a good thing. It's over. I'm going to get myself killed this time. Xiao Yu lamented in his heart, but there was nothing he could do. However, when the battle between the three bloodlines reached its peak, another high-grade bloodline was stimulated, the Yellow Emperor's bloodline. The Yellow Emperor's bloodline was implicated and began to show its power. The battle between the three bloodlines had now become four. However, it was really, at the end of the road, there was always a light at the end of the tunnel. The Yellow Emperor's bloodline also joined the battle, and its performance was extremely strong. This seemed to make the three sovereign divine beast bloodlines feel threatened. As the three sovereign divine beast bloodlines fought, they gradually fused together and began to corrode the Yellow Emperor's bloodline. Naturally, the Yellow Emperor's bloodline could not withstand the combined power of the three sovereign divine beast bloodlines. The situation in Xiao Yu's body became complicated again. In the end, Xiao Yu made up his mind and simply absorbed the blood essence of the five-clawed golden dragon emperor into his body, and once again activated his bloodline fusion technique. The situation of the bloodline in his body was getting worse and worse. Xiao Yu only released the primordial fire with all his strength to burn his body and did not do anything else. He was already resigned to his fate. The blood essence of the five-clawed golden dragon was very domineering. Although it did not cause too much damage to Xiao Yu's body, when the bloodlines fused together, it strongly suppressed the four high-grade bloodlines that were fighting. After all, the four bloodlines had already fused together. Although they were fighting at this moment, they were still in the same bloodline. The blood essence of the five-clawed golden dragon had not yet fused with Xiao Yu's bloodline, so it suppressed Xiao Yu's bloodline, although the bloodline also contained the five-clawed golden dragon's bloodline. With the counterattack of the Yellow Emperor's bloodline and the strong suppression of the five-clawed golden dragon's blood essence, the three sovereign divine beast bloodlines really completely calmed down. The four bloodlines that had already fused together began to absorb the blood essence of the five-clawed golden dragon and slowly grew stronger. While they were growing stronger, Xiao Yu had another chance to completely fuse with them and could also carefully tidy up his body again. It was also because of this additional opportunity that Xiao Yu's bloodline completely stabilized after absorbing all the blood essence of the five-clawed golden dragon. There were no more signs of rebellion. After experiencing this bloodline upgrade, Xiao Yu's body quality did not improve by much, but the level of his body's defense increased a lot. At least when he was hit by a high-grade divine weapon without any defense, his body would not collapse. He had just finished his cultivation, and the tribulation cloud had already accumulated enough power to strike down the last tribulation lightning. The color of the last tribulation lightning was gray, just like the color of the chaotic light, but its power was incomparably fierce. However, its attack power was only slightly stronger than the black and white yin-yang tribulation lightning. It was this little bit stronger that allowed the tribulation lightning to easily destroy all of Xiao Yu's defense methods. However, after being weakened by the three divine weapons and several supreme defensive divine weapons, the attack power of the tribulation lightning was less than 10%. The Great Tribulation lightning finally fell on Xiao Lingyu's body and blasted him into the ground of the planet. In an instant, the planet suddenly exploded because it could not withstand the impact. A black hole suddenly appeared, and Xiao Lingyu was in it. He endured the intense pain that came from all over his body as he accepted the test of the tribulation lightning on his soul realm and chaos realm. Fortunately, Xiao Lingyu had previously upgraded his bloodline and strengthened his body's defense. Otherwise, he would not have the chance to accept the other tests at this time. The attack that was less than 10% of its attack power would be enough to kill him here. However, just withstanding the attack of the tribulation lightning was far from enough. At this moment, the test of the two realms that were being used in the depths of his soul was the most dangerous. Xiao Lingyu's Achilles heel had always been his Achilles heel when it came to the chaos maxim and the level of his soul realm. Even in the recent 3 million years and many years before, he had been working hard to make up for his shortcomings. However, to a supremacy cultivator, a few million years was not a very long time. At least, many supremacy cultivators could not make great progress in their realms during this period of time. Chapter 491. Xiao Lingyu had been cultivating for a long time, but it was definitely less than 10 million years. To be able to become a supremacy in such a short time and usher in the divine tribulation, even if it was not unprecedented, it was definitely unparalleled. Any cultivator who progressed quickly in cultivation would be relatively weak in the realm of the soul and various kinds of comprehension, unless they were extremely intelligent. The heavenly tribulations test of the realm of the soul was nothing more than using all kinds of extremely realistic illusions to create inner demons. This would not cause too much trouble for Xiao Lingyu. After all, until now, he had not done anything that he felt guilty about, nor was there anything that he could not let go of, nor was there anything that he was obsessed with. However, he had to deal with those illusions and suppress the formation of inner demons while also accepting the test of the heavenly tribulation's comprehension of the chaos maxim. This was more troublesome. Even if his realm of the soul was rather high, he would not give the inner demons a chance to form. Even if his comprehension of the chaos maxim was rather thorough, it was difficult for him to deal with these two tests at the same time. Moreover, his realm of the soul was not high, and he did not fully understand the chaos maxim. Originally, it was easy to suppress the inner demons, but as the situation of the other test of the chaos maxim became more and more severe, he actually felt that the inner demons were showing signs of forming. His emotions became more and more chaotic, and the things that he had already let go of were actually affecting his thoughts again. The situation was extremely unfavorable for Xiao Lingyu. His golden soul pearl's luster dimmed, and it was constantly trembling. At this rate, he could not count on successfully passing the divine tribulation. Originally, Xiao Lingyu was still hoping that the grayish-black metal piece hidden in his sea of consciousness could help him at a critical moment. However, the metal piece was very quiet and did not seem to have any intention of helping him. Xiao Lingyu also knew that this could not go on, and he did not have a good solution. He made up his mind and simply released the golden soul pearl from the chaos demon nascent soul's body. Then, he moved it into his sea of consciousness and placed it next to the grayish-black metal piece. After a long while, the grayish-black metal piece still did not move. Although Xiao Lingyu did not despair, he was already at a dead end. His golden soul pearl was actually starting to collapse. At this moment, Xiao Lingyu could not help but feel the fear of death, and the inner demons took advantage of this situation to form. While he still had some clarity of mind, Xiao Lingyu opened his eyes and looked at the thick clouds in the sky. He looked at the deep space of the universe, and looked at Anya, Qing Xian, Ling Er, and the chaos beast of chaos in the distance. His face was full of reluctance, and his face was full of longing. Cultivating the 9 revolutions chaos formula would allow one to become extremely powerful. This was a fact that was vividly displayed in the cultivation realm and the immortal, devil, and monster realms. It also allowed Xiao Lingyu to trample others underfoot and made him invincible in the cultivation realm and the three realms. However, cultivating the 9 revolutions chaos formula also required one to pay a price that ordinary cultivators could not afford. It was also thousands of times more difficult than the cultivation path of ordinary cultivators. Xiao Lingyu's relatives and friends around him did not know what was going on with Xiao Lingyu. However, Xiao Lingyu's strong performance for a long time made them believe that Xiao Lingyu could successfully pass the tribulation. Moreover, Xiao Lingyu had indeed reached the final step. The key was that this step was, in fact, impossible for Xiao Lingyu to cross. However, Xiao Lingyu quickly discovered that although the grayish-black metal piece did not move at all, the spiritual energy released by his golden soul pearl was being absorbed by it. The grayish-black metal piece had always been absorbing spiritual energy, and it would also absorb all kinds of attacks that invaded the soul. This was a common occurrence, so Xiao Lingyu was not surprised. When the inner demon and heavenly tribulations comprehension of the chaos formula reached a level where Xiao Lingyu's soul could not withstand, his golden soul pearl was covered with fine cracks, and the cracks were gradually expanding. Boom! An explosion sounded in the sea of consciousness. Xiao Lingyu's golden soul pearl flashed with a chaotic light and suddenly exploded. Although the golden soul pearl only contained spiritual energy, it was still a very special existence. Its explosion should have caused Xiao Lingyu's head to explode, but the impact of the explosion and all the energy waves released were all absorbed by the grayish-black metal piece in an instant. Instantly, Xiao Lingyu felt his consciousness disappear. His last trace of consciousness told him that he was going to die, and then he did not know anything else. However, Xiao Lingyu's body was still quietly floating in midair, and the tribulation cloud in the sky cast a ray of light into his body. Seeing this, Qing Xian, Anya, Ling and Fudi all flew over, and their faces were full of joy. Everyone knew that as long as the tribulation cast a ray of light before it dissipated, it meant that the person undergoing the tribulation had successfully passed. However, at this moment, Xiao Lingyu was still quietly floating in midair, and he did not move at all. Qing Xian, Anya, and Fudi did not dare to come close to disturb him, and they continued to stand guard around him. The tribulation cloud slowly dissipated, and part of the ray of light cast by the tribulation cloud began to increase Xiao Lingyu's power and the quality of his power and the toughness of his body. The other part sank into the sea of consciousness and wrapped around the grayish-black metal piece. The ray of light wrapped around the grayish-black metal piece gradually drew Xiao Lingyu's spiritual energy out of the grayish-black metal piece, and then the ray of light condensed and solidified Xiao Lingyu's spiritual energy, forming a golden soul pearl. However, the golden soul pearl that gradually formed completely wrapped around the grayish-black metal piece. An entire year had passed, and the ray of light's effect on Xiao Lingyu's body and power had ended. He now possessed the chaotic divine power, and its quality was much higher than before, and it was many times stronger than normal divine power. His power and the quality of his power had increased greatly, but the quality of his body had also improved. Because the ray of light was too special, it first stimulated Xiao Lingyu's various special bloodlines, causing them to boil and completely merge into one bloodline. Then the ray of light made this high-grade bloodline more compatible with Xiao Lingyu's body, and the ray of light and the high-grade bloodline also increased the quality of Xiao Lingyu's body, causing his body to almost reach the peak of a mid-grade defensive divine weapon. In his sea of consciousness, the ray of light had also disappeared, but Xiao Lingyu's golden soul pearl that had originally exploded had gathered together again, and the grayish-black metal piece was also completely hidden in his golden soul pearl. Thinking back, before Xiao Lingyu had obtained the grayish-black metal piece, it had always been hidden in the golden soul pearl of that huge corpse. That dead cultivator was also an expert who cultivated the chaotic divine power when he was alive, so it was not difficult to accept that the grayish-black metal piece was now hidden in Xiao Lingyu's golden soul pearl. Although he had successfully passed the heavenly tribulation, Xiao Lingyu had not yet woken up. He was currently in a dream. In his dream, he saw his parents again, and he saw his family and friends from Earth. Naturally, he also saw Miao Ying, who was wearing a red dress and playing a blood-colored flute. He saw the cold-looking Qing Xian in the East Imperial Kingdom. He saw Anya, who held the unforgiven divine sword. And he saw Elder Qi, who was full of expectations in his dream. He also saw a circle of Yin-Yang Taiji suddenly explode. And he saw the chaotic divine power turning into Yin and Yang turning into the four symbols, and he saw the four symbols giving birth to all living things. He thought that he was already dead, so he did not want to wake up. He also felt that he was too tired and wanted to rest in this state. The three women and the foodie had waited for 10 years, and they were very patient. They were not anxious even after waiting for 100 years. However, after waiting for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, and 100,000 years, they felt that something was wrong. Thus, Anya gently patted Xiao Lingyu's shoulder and softly called out to him. As for why they came to disturb him, it was because the three women and the foodie did not feel that Xiao Lingyu was in a state of cultivation. They all felt that Xiao Lingyu was now in a deep sleep. Cultivation could not be disturbed, but sleeping was not a problem. In his dream, Xiao Lingyu vaguely heard Anya calling out to him, and Anya's voice and face immediately appeared in front of his eyes. Thus, he revealed a knowing smile in the eyes of the three women and the foodie. When the three women and the foodie saw that smile, they thought that Xiao Lingyu had woken up, so they did not move. However, after waiting for a long time, Xiao Lingyu still did not move, and this made Anya angry. Anya forcefully pinched Xiao Lingyu's soft waist and scolded him fiercely. "Who told you to play dumb here?" Xiao Lingyu's physical quality was quite high, and he was in a state of drifting consciousness. Anya's pinch did not bring him any pain at all, so he did not wake up yet. Anya was furious. She steeled her heart and took out the merciless sword and turned it into a thin and long sword. Then, she stabbed Xiao Lingyu's thigh with all her might. No matter how high Xiao Lingyu's physical quality was, he could not withstand the sharpness of the merciless sword. The piercing pain traveled to his nerves, causing Xiao Lingyu's body to suddenly tremble. Then, he reflexively jumped up and let out a cry of pain. After being stabbed by the merciless sword, Xiao Lingyu finally woke up. When he saw the three women and the foodie, he felt that it was so real. It was not as illusory as before, and he could not help but feel a little puzzled. "You idiot! You went to sleep after successfully passing the tribulation. You made us wait here." Anya stepped forward and scolded. "Successfully passing the tribulation? I'm not dead." Xiao Lingyu had a look of disbelief. He was stunned at first. Then he pulled Anya to his side and touched her face with his hand. He said in surprise, "You really do feel something." Anya's face turned red. She hurriedly escaped and scolded, "You're so thick-skinned. You can't be serious at all." Xiao Lingyu did not care about Anya's scolding. He pulled Qing Xian into his arms again and kissed Anya's cherry lips fiercely. After feeling the familiar gentleness and coldness, he was sure that he was not dead and that everything in front of him was not a dream. "Haha, I'm not dead." Xiao Lingyu looked up to the sky and laughed. His gloominess had disappeared without a trace. Chapter 492. The three girls and the foodie were very confused by Xiao Lingyu's ecstasy, but they did not ask. Everyone returned to the Hua men's camp, but they did not hold a banquet for Xiao Lingyu, nor did they spread the news. The leader of the Hua men was a powerful deterrent to the divine realm. As long as he was in the Hua men, all the cultivators in the divine realm had to be polite to the disciples of the Hua men. Although Anya and Qing Xian were happy that Xiao Lingyu had successfully passed the tribulation, they could not help but feel a little bitter. After all, the time they could stay in the divine realm after passing the tribulation would be very short. Xiao Yu naturally knew what Anya and Qing Xian were thinking. He could only try his best to accompany them. Anya and Qing Xian were still very far away from the peak of the late-stage monarch realm. If they cultivated at a normal speed, it would take at least tens of millions of years for them to undergo the divine tribulation. And the experience left behind by his predecessors told Xiao Yu that even if he possessed a sacred artifact, it was impossible for him to bring other cultivators into the realm of the gods with him. This was because the perception of that guiding, multicolored light was incomparably powerful. It could sense any stowaways hiding anywhere and expel them. Anya and Qing Xian were still very far away from the divine tribulation, so they were not in a hurry to cultivate. Coincidentally, Xiao Yu was also very free now. Therefore, the three of them spent almost all their time together and did things that they loved to do. After all, at their level of cultivation, their energy was almost limitless. Although they had fun together every day, as time passed, Xiao Yu's day of ascension was getting closer and closer. Anya and Qing Xian could not help but feel frustrated. This was unavoidable. Xiao Yu could only comfort them and encourage them to work hard in their cultivation after he ascended so that they could reach the divine realm as soon as possible. Xiao Yu even promised them that she would try her best to find them when she reached the realm of the gods. Of course, that included meowing. Before the day of Xiao Yu's ascension arrived, a disciple of the Huamin suddenly came to report that an old friend of Xiao Yu from the cultivation world wanted to see her. Xiao Yu was a little puzzled, but she still asked the disciple to bring the person over to take a look first. "So it's you. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." The person who came was indeed Xiao Yu's old friend. Speaking of which, Xiao Yu owed him a little. He was Yin Tianzi, who had once guided Xiao Yu in the cultivation world. Yin Tianzi's appearance didn't change much, but his cultivation had reached the nine heavens Xian immortal realm. "Brother Xiao, you're now a top cultivator in the immortal realm. You can even say that you're the master of the immortal realm. I wouldn't dare to trouble you to welcome me," Yin Tianzi replied politely. The two sat down and Yin Tianzi continued. "Right now, I'm facing a big problem. I have no choice but to come and ask for your help. Of course, this big problem is just a small problem to you." Xiao Yu did owe Yin Tianzi a big favor in the cultivation world. Now that Yin Tianzi had something to ask of him, he naturally would not refuse. Therefore, he said, "As long as it's within my power, I'll definitely help you." Yin Tianzi smiled and said, "Haha, I knew I didn't misjudge you. Not only did you improve quickly, you're also a man of honor." Xiao Yu nodded and didn't say anything. Yin Tianzi continued, "I've been cultivating and traveling the immortal realm all these years. I've never joined any sect or faction. I've only been alone. I knew about your current situation when you established the Huamin. However, I didn't have any trouble back then and didn't want to disturb you. After all, although we're friends, the gap between us is too big. We're not on the same level, so at this point," Yin Tianzi smiled bitterly and continued, "It's just that a few thousand years ago, I divined my own fate and found that I would be facing a great calamity in the near future. However, someone would help me, and I would be able to escape from it. I thought about it carefully, and this person can only be you. That's why I'm here." In Yin Tianzi's opinion, the tribulation of a nine-heaven Xian immortal was nothing to someone like Xiao Yu. "Then you can stay in the Huamin for a while. If you're in trouble, I'll help you," Xiao Yu said generously. "Thank you, brother." Yin Tianzi got up and thanked him. Yin Tianzi's divination skills were not bad. He stayed in the Huamin's base for less than 1,000 years, and trouble really came knocking on his door. However, this trouble was not only big for Yin Tianzi, but also for Xiao Yu. The cultivators who came to trouble Yin Tianzi barged into the Huamin's base and easily passed through the Huamin's disciples. They accurately found Yin Tianzi's hiding place. When Xiao Yu got the news, he immediately took action. He brought Qing Xian, Anya, and Fudi to Yin Tianzi's temporary residence. The person who came was a middle-aged cultivator. He wore dark golden armor and held a dark golden spear. He looked very valiant. The most shocking thing was that the space he was in was constantly fluctuating violently. The reason why the space was fluctuating violently was because the person's aura was too strong. Just the aura was enough to cause the space of the immortal realm to fluctuate violently. It was obvious how strong the person was. Xiaoling Yu could easily cause the space of the immortal realm to fluctuate violently, but he always kept his aura under control. The cultivator in front of him was obviously doing his best to suppress his aura, but the space was still fluctuating violently. This proved that his strength was not something the space of the three realms could withstand. Xiaoling Yu could not determine the cultivation level of the person, but he was sure that the person was definitely stronger than him. He was definitely not from the three realms, but from the immortal realm. Xiaoling Yu had seen immortal realm cultivators before, but they were all able to prevent the space around them from fluctuating. That's right, Xiaoling Yu had seen immortal realm cultivators in the cultivation realm, not the immortal realm. Maybe the immortal realm cultivators would not be affected much if they went to the cultivation realm, but it was different if they came to the immortal, devil, and demon realm. After all, the space of the immortal, devil, and demon realm was on a completely different level from the cultivation realm. This could also explain why the young immortal realm cultivator with the great sun sword did not chase him to the immortal realm. As for why the old lady who took away the icy soul heavenly silkworm did not affect the space of the demon realm, it was probably because she was too strong. "Who are you? Why did you barge into the base of the Huang Men?" Xiaoling Yu asked coldly. "I'm here to look for him, not you." The person said calmly, but his voice was deep and fleeting. "I don't remember offending you. Why are you looking for me?" Yin Tianzi frowned and asked. "Because you disrupted the cycle and destroyed the order. So I'm here to kill you." The person replied. "Disrupted the cycle and destroyed the order? What do you mean? Can you explain it more clearly?" Yin Tianzi was even more confused. "You disobeyed the cycle of the heavens and disobeyed the order of life and death. You went through hundreds of reincarnations and stole the fate of yin and yang. So you deserve to die." The person replied. "This reincarnation technique has been passed down since the ancient times. Although it defies the heavens and changes one's fate, it is still a cultivation technique. I don't understand how it can disrupt the cycle and destroy the order." Yin Tianzi argued. "You don't need to understand. You only need to know that you deserve to die. Do you want to end it yourself, or do I have to do it?" The person said impatiently. "Wait," Xiaoling Yu interrupted. "Even if he disrupted the cycle and destroyed the order, what right do you have to kill him? Who sent you to kill him?" The person scoffed. "I don't need to tell you that. You may be a little capable, but in my eyes, you're just an ant. I advise you to step aside so you don't get implicated and lose your life." Xiaoling Yu shook his head. "If you don't explain yourself today, I won't step aside. This cycle and order are natural. The existence and disappearance of all things are natural. Nature is broad and profound, accommodating all things in the world. Even the recultivation technique is permitted by the great way of nature. Otherwise, it would not have existed since ancient times. Could it be that Your Excellency or Your Excellency's master thinks that a mere technique can go against the power of nature? Isn't the recultivation technique in natural existence as well?" "Huh." The newcomer laughed and said, "You dare to talk about the Tao of nature in front of me? You're making a fool of yourself." Xiaoling Yu had no intention of backing down. "If you think that I'm being unreasonable, you can explain it to me. If I'm convinced, I'll step aside." The person looked at Xiaoling Yu with disdain. "I don't need to explain anything to an ant. If you don't step aside, I'll just kill you too." As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his spear and stabbed it toward Yin Tianzi. The strange thing was that the person who came should be very powerful, but the speed of his attack and the power of the long spear were only one level higher than the attack of a venerable stage cultivator. That level was the same as Xiaoling Yu's current level. Therefore, Xiaoling Yu pushed Yin Tianzi away in the next moment and blocked the spear with his silver moon broken saber. "You're courting death. The person was furious. He swept his spear at Xiaoling Yu and quickly stabbed at him. However, his speed didn't increase by much. Xiaoling Yu was calm. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and dodged the spear. The silver moon broken saber stuck close to the spear and slashed at the person's palm. The person didn't back down. Instead, he quickly lifted his leg and kicked at Xiaoling Yu's abdomen. Obviously, he was also an expert in close combat. Xiaoling Yu didn't back down either. He bent his calf and blocked the person's foot. However, when his calf was kicked, he felt a sharp pain. The person's foot had the power of a high-grade divine artifact, which surprised Xiaoling Yu. Chapter 493. The newcomer seemed to be competing with Xiaoling Yu. Instead of retreating, he used his left hand to strike at Xiaoling Yu's head. Both of them were using offense against offense, as if they were very confident in their own defense. If Xiaoling Yu insisted on using the silver moon broken blade to slash at his opponent's neck, his head would be hit. Xiaoling Yu wasn't sure if the silver moon broken blade could cut through his opponent's neck, but he knew that if his opponent's palm landed on his head would probably explode. Thus, Xiaoling Yu quickly changed his attack. The silver moon broken blade that was originally aimed at his opponent's neck changed its trajectory and slashed at his opponent's left wrist. His opponent put away his spear and used his free right hand to strike Xiaoling Yu's chest again. Xiaoling Yu could only use his palm that wasn't holding the silver moon broken blade to meet his opponent's right hand. At this moment, his opponent had already lowered his left hand and dodged the silver moon broken blade's attack. Bang! Their palms collided, and Xiaoling Yu felt a huge force enter his body through his arm. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. On the other hand, his opponent was still standing in the same spot. This meant that his opponent was much stronger than him. Furthermore, this was under the premise that his opponent was suppressing his strength. If his opponent had used his full strength, it would have been even more powerful. Xiaoling Yu wasn't at a disadvantage in a short fight just now. His reaction wasn't any slower than his opponent's either. If that's all you've got, I advise you to mind your own business. The newcomer took out his spear again and said indifferently, I don't see what you've got. Xiaoling Yu pursed his lips and said non-committally, You're about to ascend to the realm of the gods. If you know what's good for you, I can find you a good family when you reach the realm of the gods. The newcomer tried to persuade him. You don't have to worry about that. The realm of the gods is so big. There's no place for me. Xiaoling Yu shook his head and smiled. Are you determined to protect this person? Do you know what kind of existence the person who wants to kill him is in the realm of the gods? If you do this, you will only ruin your own future. The person threatened again. I don't know what will happen if I go to the god realm, and I don't have the heart to guess. The path is under my own feet, and I can walk it however I want. There's no need to look at other people's faces. Furthermore, I know what I'm doing, and I'm mentally prepared to bear the consequences of my actions, Xiaoling Yu replied calmly. Seeing that Xiaoling Yu was unmoved by both the carrot and the stick, the man was furious. However, he did not know that the more he tried to use both the carrot and stick, the more unafraid Xiaoling Yu was of him. If this person really had the strength to defeat him, why would he negotiate with him? Xiaoling Yu felt that although this person was strong, he must have been greatly restricted and unable to display his full strength in the immortal realm. You might not know this, but you are forcing yourself onto the path of death. The person narrowed his eyes and said coldly, That depends on whether you have the ability to do so, Xiaoling Yu said fearlessly. The person's expression darkened as he looked back and forth between Xiaoling Yu and Yin Tianzi, as if he was about to make a decision. I'll ask you one more time. Are you going to move aside or not? The person asked seriously. No, Xiaoling Yu replied straightforwardly. Then die. The person was truly enraged, and his entire body's aura surged wildly. In an instant, it had far surpassed Xiaoling Yu's cultivation level. Xiaoling Yu was not surprised, because he had already seen that the person was suppressing his strength. Now that he had given up on suppressing his strength, it was within his expectations. However, the huge difference in strength made Xiaoling Yu feel that he was weak, but he still blocked Yin Tianzi behind him. After the person raised his aura to a certain level, he waved his hand and slapped towards Xiaoling Yu. That palm strike had yet to land, but there was already a powerful palm force rushing towards him. Although it was just a palm energy, the person's cultivation level was too high. If the palm energy hit him, Xiaoling Yu would probably die on the spot, even if he was wearing a supreme-grade legendary weapon. Moreover, he might not be able to protect Yin Tianzi. After the person slapped his hand, the space around him fluctuated even more violently. Then, it formed a spatial black hole and swallowed the person's body. However, before the person disappeared into the spatial black hole, he saw an unbelievable scene. His palm energy should have easily killed the two of them, but it was blocked by an 8-legged cauldron. The two people he wanted to kill were unharmed. He actually has a divine weapon. After the person exclaimed, his body disappeared into the spatial black hole. Xiaoling Yu put away the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron and carefully looked around. After confirming that there was no trace of the expert, he was slightly relieved. He should be from the realm of the gods, but the experts from the realm of the gods are restricted by the space of the 3 realms. If he uses strength that exceeds the tolerance of the space of the 3 realms, he will be rejected by the space of the 3 realms and then be sent back to the realm of the gods. Even the experts from the realm of the gods find it difficult to resist the power of the 3 realms. Yin Tianzi stroked his beard and explained, "I hope that after I ascend, you won't come down again." Xiaoling Yu said worriedly, "It's definitely not easy to come down from the realm of the gods. It will be difficult for him to come down again." Yin Tianzi replied casually, then said apologetically, "However, I think he will remember you. When you ascend to the realm of the gods, perhaps he will find trouble with you there." From his words, I can tell that he has a very strong backer. Xiaoling Yu waved his hand and said, "The realm of the gods is definitely not small. It won't be easy for them to find me, unless my luck is extremely bad. If my luck is really bad, I'll probably die in the hands of others before they find me. No matter what, it's all thanks to your help this time." Yin Tianzi bowed deeply. After all, Xiaoling Yu saved his life this time. In the past, he only gave Xiaoling Yu some pointers and did not save Xiaoling Yu's life. Haha, no need to be so polite. When you ascend to the realm of the gods, maybe I will need your help. Xiaoling Yu helped Yin Tianzi up and said with a smile. Xiaoling Yu felt that Yin Tianzi must be extraordinary to be able to attract the attention of the experts of the realm of the gods. Right now, Yin Tianzi's cultivation was not very high and his progress was not very fast. However, who could guarantee that he would not become a peerless expert in the future? Yin Tianzi stayed in Huamen for a while. When the expert of the realm of the gods did not come to find him again, he left alone. Xiaoling Yu did not ask Yin Tianzi to stay in Huamen. After all, Yin Tianzi was already being targeted by the experts of the realm of the gods. Leaving him here would bring disaster to the Huamen. Yin Tianzi did not ask to stay in Huamen either. He probably did not want to implicate the Huamen. 2,000 years after Yin Tianzi left Huamen, it was finally time for Xiaoling Yu to ascend to the realm of the gods. A ray of light from the 9 heavens fell on his body. To everyone's surprise, Fudi was very attached to Xiaoling Yu and pounced on Xiaoling Yu. However, he was also covered by the ray of light. Xiaoling Yu thought that the ray of light would expel Fudi. However, he did not expect that the ray of light would lead him and Fudi to ascend together. The ray of light did not expel Fudi. This scene shocked and puzzled all the cultivators who were sending Xiaoling Yu off. Could it be that there was a problem with the ray of light? Or that the law had changed? Anya reacted quickly. She also flew up and charged towards the ray of light. She wanted to ascend together with Xiaoling Yu. Qing Xian followed behind her. Unfortunately, the two of them were blocked outside by the multicolored light. Xiaoling Yu guessed that Fudi was at the same level as him. That was why the ray of light did not expel him. However, he did not understand. Fudi had not been tested and baptized by the divine tribulation. Even if he was at the same level as him, how could he be qualified to ascend to the realm of the gods? Or was it because Fudi was too special? Foodies were indeed special. Xiaoling Yu had never heard of any demon beasts that were born with chaotic magic. He had also never heard of any demon beasts that could swallow any kind of energy without being stuffed to death. No one could answer Xiaoling Yu's question. However, he was happy to see this situation. It was also a good thing to have Foodie following him. Farewell to the realm of the gods. Farewell to my friends and family. We should meet again in the realm of the gods. Although Xiaoling Yu was reluctant to part, he could only wave goodbye to Qing Xian, Anya, Gu Yunfei, and the others. He suppressed the sadness in his heart and smiled at them. He had already left behind what he should leave behind. He had already told them what he should tell them 1,000 times. Xiaoling Yu did not have any regrets in the three realms. Although he was reluctant to part, he still had to leave when it was time. Xiaoling Yu believed that his friends and family would be able to pass the divine tribulation with so many supreme-grade divine artifacts in the Huaman. This separation was only temporary. Sooner or later, they would all be reunited in the realm of the gods. Soon, the ray of light enveloped Xiaoling Yu and Foodie and entered a spatial tunnel. Then, the ray of light gradually accelerated. Xiaoling Yu could no longer see anything in the realm of the gods. He could only see countless rays of light flying backward. Gradually, his body and Foodie's body began to spin. Then, they could no longer see anything. After an unknown amount of time, the ray of light suddenly stopped and disappeared. Xiaoling Yu and Foodie could not stabilize their bodies for a moment and fell heavily. Fortunately, Xiaoling Yu and Foodie's body quality was very high. Therefore, although they fell into a pile of rocks, they were not injured at all. After getting used to lying on the rocks for a while, Xiaoling Yu shook his head violently a few times and slowly sat up. He was surrounded by a barren mountain, and there was a small river beside him. It was very quiet all around. He felt that the spatial pressure here was many times stronger than in the realm of the gods. Moreover, the speed of his power circulation was much slower. Moreover, his divine sense could only cover a radius of 1,000 feet. Xiaoling Yu muttered, "This should be the realm of the gods." Chapter 494. Roar. Foodie stood up shakily and let out a loud roar, as if he was very dissatisfied with the fall. This roar startled many birds in the forest and sent them flying away. The roar also reverberated through the barren mountains. The birds were scared away, but Foodie's roar also attracted a group of wolf demons that looked like yaks. There were hundreds of wolf demons in this group. They came from all directions and surrounded Xiaoling Yu and Foodie. This is not the divine realm. Don't shout. Look, you've caused trouble. Xiaoling Yu smacked Foodie's head and said in annoyance. Xiaoling Yu narrowed his eyes and looked around. He relaxed a little because he realized that these wolf demons' cultivation was almost the same as his. Xiaoling Yu could be said to be invincible in a battle of the same level. With Foodie, he naturally did not fear these wolf demons. But when the wolf demons rushed over, he and Foodie were about to release their respective domains. But they realized gloomily that in the divine realm, he and Foodie could not use their domains. The Foodie's reaction was faster. It swung its long tail and swept around in a circle, sweeping away all the wolf demons who couldn't stop themselves in time. There were about 20 wolf demons that were swept away, but only 3 or 4 of them were able to stand up again. The remaining 10 or so were either wailing on the ground or dead. As if provoked by the death of their companions, hundreds of wolf demons howled in unison and rushed over. Xiaoling Yu held the silver moon broken sword in his hand. With Foodie's small body as the center, he blocked the wolf demon's attacks. Foodie's body shone with chaotic light. He either kicked with his hooves, bit with his mouth, or swept with his tail. Although they could not use their domains, and there were many wolf demons, Xiaoling Yu and Foodie were not at a disadvantage. One wolf demon after another fell in front of them. Because there were too many wolf demons, and they were not slow, they could occasionally use their claws to scratch Xiaoling Yu and Foodie. However, they could only tear Xiaoling Yu's clothes and remove a few strands of Foodie's hair. they could not cause any substantial damage. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the wolf demons left nearly 300 corpses and fled in panic. Looking at the wolf corpses on the ground and smelling the thick smell of blood in the air, Xiao Yu frowned slightly. Fudi, on the other hand, unceremoniously devoured the wolf demon corpses that were still bleeding and emitting life energy. You only know how to eat. Sooner or later, you'll be stuffed to death. Xiao Yu jokingly scolded again. Then, he jumped into the river to wash his body. By the time he came up and changed into a new set of clothes, the foodie had already swept the floor clean. Then, he looked as if he was about to fall drunk. You really ate too much. Xiao Yu was speechless. He could only put foodie into the spirit beast pouch. He knew that foodie would definitely sleep for a while. After all, it had devoured too many demon corpses. The energy was enough for it to digest for a while. Xiao Yu felt a little strange that he had to go through a battle as soon as he arrived in the realm of the gods. He also felt that this was not a good place, so he immediately picked a direction and walked quickly. The barren mountain seemed to be very large. After walking for more than 2 hours, Xiao Yu still could not see the edge of the barren mountain. He also did not encounter any cultivators or buildings. However, Xiao Yu gradually realized that more and more wolf demons were following him from afar. It seemed that the wolf demons that had escaped earlier had not given up on revenge for their companions. Instead, they had called for more of their companions. Wolf howls came from behind him, making Xiao Yu feel inexplicably irritated. He also faintly felt a sense of danger in his heart. It seems that this pack of wolf demons is not small. It's inevitable that there are some powerful ones among them. I have to get rid of their pursuit as soon as possible. After thinking for a while, Xiao Yu quickened his pace. He originally wanted to fly, but he was helpless. The spatial pressure in the realm of the gods was too strong. Moreover, the suction force from the ground was also very strong. It made it impossible for a cultivator like him, who had just ascended, to fly. Xiao Yu felt that it was strange. Many of the flying birds had similar cultivation levels as him, but they could fly in mid-air. Foodie was still sleeping in the spirit beast pouch. At such a crucial time, he had lost a powerful helper like Foodie. Xiao Yu was very depressed. While running at full speed, Xiao Yu also jumped onto the branch of a big tree. When he looked back, he saw countless wolf demons rushing towards him like a tide. He could not help but feel his scalp go numb. Xiao Yu, who did not know anything about this place, did not have any good ideas other than running with all his might. Fortunately, Xiao Yu's speed was faster than those wolf demons. Therefore, he was able to gradually widen the distance between him and the wolf demons. However, what Xiao Yu did not expect was that not long after, he realized that not only were there countless wolf demons chasing after him, but there were also many wolf demons gathering in front of him and on his left and right. It was obvious that he was surrounded by the pack of wolves. No matter where he ran, he would inevitably encounter a large number of wolf demons. Xiao Yu was very depressed. Did he have to use the sage weapon to protect himself when he had just arrived in the realm of the gods? Not long after, Xiao Yu saw a cliff. With a thought, he stabbed the silver moon broken sword into the rock wall and used it to climb up. After climbing about 20 feet, he stopped. Then, he dug a cave in the middle of the cliff. Wolf demons rushed over from all directions and surrounded the cliff. Even the top of the cliff was filled with large wolf demons. At first, those wolf demons were all howling towards the cave that Xiao Yu was in. They had no way of rushing into the cave. However, not long after, they began to stack on top of each other. With countless of their companions at the bottom, they gradually formed a slope that led to the middle of the cliff. Countless wolf demons began to charge towards the cave along the slope. Xiao Yu guarded the narrow entrance of the cave and used the silver moon broken sword to slash at the wolf demons that pounced on him. With the sharpness of the silver moon broken sword, all the wolf demons that came close to the entrance of the cave only had their blood splattered. Then they were either seriously injured or dead and fell to the bottom of the cliff. The wolf demons below continued to charge up, while the wolf demons above used their claws to claw at the hard rock at the top of the cliff. Gravel and wolf demon corpses fell together and gradually expanded the surface area of the slope. This caused the number of wolf demons that could charge up to the top to increase. The entrance of the cave was only so big. Only one wolf demon could charge towards Shaolin Yu at a time. The other wolf demons were using their claws to claw at the rocks on both sides of the cave, trying to expand the entrance of the cave. Shaolin Yu saw this situation and knew that it would be impossible to guard this cave for long. When he saw the few silver-haired wolf demons that were obviously larger than ordinary wolf demons, he did not dare to bite the bullet and charge out. At this moment, Shaolin Yu could not help but think of his thousands of puppets. If he had not handed them all over to Qin Xian before he ascended, he would not be in such a passive position now. More and more wolf demons died. The surrounding area was filled with a thick smell of blood, and the smell of blood would spread far and wide with the wind. However, there were many wolf demons here. Ordinary carnivorous demon beasts did not dare to come close. However, there were many flying beasts that flapped their wings and soared in the sky. They flew over from afar and circled in the sky, occasionally swooping down. These flying beasts did not seem to be interested in the dead wolf demons. Every time they swooped down, they were aiming for the wolf demons that were still alive. Most of the time, they could easily catch one wolf demon, as simple as a goshawk catching a mouse. The flying beasts had the advantage of controlling the air. The wolf demons would not let them go up and down as they pleased. As there were more and more flying beasts in the sky, the wolf demons began to form groups. As long as a flying beast pounced on them, they would work together to spit out a divine light attack, forcing the flying beast to retreat. The appearance of these flying beasts relieved Shaolin Yu of the pressure to a certain extent, especially the wolf demons that were at the top of the cliff. They were more likely to be noticed by the flying beasts in the sky. Naturally, they were easier to attack. Seeing that the attacks of the pack of wolves had slowed down too much, the few wolf demons that were obviously stronger were enraged. They let out wolf howls together and rushed up the slope themselves. After hearing the wolf howls, the wolf demons seemed to be encouraged and motivated. They also rushed up with a few silver-haired wolf demons. The silver-furred wolf demons were one level higher than Shaolin Yu, but they still rushed forward together. Shaolin Yu felt that he wouldn't be able to hold on this time. However, he didn't want to use the sacred artifact too early. He also didn't want to rely on the sacred artifact whenever he encountered danger. Therefore, he still used the true primal flame. Perhaps the wolf demons had an innate fear of fire. When the few wolf demons that were leading the pack felt the power of the primordial fire, they immediately stopped and became very vigilant. They did not dare to rush up, and Shaolin Yu would not let them watch from the outside. He kept forming the primordial seal and blasted it out. The primordial seal was very powerful. When it exploded in the pack of wolves, it would cause a large number of casualties. There were more and more flying beasts in the sky. They almost covered the sky and caused a lot of damage to the pack of wolves. The few wolf leaders knew that they could not continue like this. After another angry howl, they did not charge toward the cave where Shaolin Yu was. Instead, they spat out divine light at the cave entrance from afar. The primordial fire was very powerful, and the divine light's attack was not very strong. However, the continuous attack of the divine light would make the primordial fire less and less stable. Shaolin Yu knew that these wolf demons could not hold on for too long. Therefore, he took out the sacred weapon, the yin-yang mirror, and poured his power into it to create 4 shadow monsters. Due to the improvement of his strength, the 4 shadow monsters created by Shaolin Yu's yin-yang mirror were not only stronger, but they could also exist for a longer time. They were not afraid of the wolf demon's sharp claws and teeth, nor were they afraid of the divine light attacks. Under Shaolin Yu's command, they all rushed out and attacked the few silver-haired wolf demons that were leading the pack. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.